All right. I think we are now live. Give it a second to show up. Perfect. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Pokemon Rants. Today, we got Dan, otherwise known as KetchumAllCollectibles, a.k.a. Mr. Negative Pokemon. Started his journey humbly as a fisherman, selling coins and fish on eBay, and worked his way up as an entrepreneur and engineer mindset. Now one of the top running salesmen in Pokemon space, selling more than 75,000 products and nearly perfect customer satisfaction. Always known for his shilling of his Celebrations Charizard plays and negative Pokemon crash analysis. Dan, welcome to the stream. Happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for reaching out and having me on. Looking forward to the chat.
All right, buddy. I think we all know you, Dan, but and it'd probably be inappropriate because I'm probably the one that needs more introduction than yourself, just because I think you're a bit more well known. But it's not good to talk about myself on my own podcast. So, Dan, if you just want to say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kick it off.
Yeah, I'm KetchumAllCollectibles, Dan. I do this full time. It's been just over 2 years now. I've been doing it full time. I'm sure some of your questions will lead us through my journey and all that, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. But Instagram, eBay, YouTube, I'm KetchumAllCollectibles at all places, pretty much.
Perfect, Dan. And we'll do this a little bit dynamically. So as we go through any points, if you see something in the chat, just let me know. We'll pull it up and we'll try to bring the chat into the conversation as we're going through it, so it's a bit current and it's within the current context. So just let me know if you see anything. Mm-hmm. So we'll kick it off probably with an interesting point. I was watching a lot of your archives. I was mentioning to you just in the pre-call, going back 2 or 3 years ago with Nick and Old School Pokemon. When you first had James on the podcast, it was a good time. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned something recently in the conversation with Nick, which I thought had a nice little collision. And that's around really the survival of Pokemon. So Nick kind of phrased it earlier today around the nostalgic perspective of us kind of doing it as kids, got too cool for it in high school. We left it, came back, and it's somewhat nostalgic to us. And then if you tie in some points made previously around, the Pokerevs and the Unlisted Leafs, and they really kind of introduce millions of people to it and make it cool. So how much do you think this kind of cool factor plays into the survival of this Pokemon hobby and tied back to the nostalgic aspect?
One thing I was thinking about recently, and I forget what live stream I was listening to or whatever that even prompted it. Do we just think it's cool because we're adults now and we're surrounding ourselves with other Pokemon people? Or is it actually that much cooler? Because Logan Paul, Post Malone is doing magic, but still they're like a pretty small subset. I guess Katy Perry, and there are some big celebrities doing it, but there's probably still circles that think it's very uncool. Like we're just so engrossed in that one. Like go back to high school, you've got all the different cliques, you've got the jocks, you've got the nerds, you've got whatever. Some of it almost just feels like a bias by whom we're surrounded by. That said, Pokemon is amazingly cool. I mean, you're doing it, I'm doing it. It's obviously cool. So
that's right. I mean, geez.
But yeah, it is getting into that multi-generational phase. Like my kids are really getting into it, and that's not by being forced. It's just everywhere in my house, so they're naturally getting into it, and it's good to see.
Anytime you're an employee, it does make it a little forced, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah. But my wife teaches as well, and she's taught over the past several years. She's taught anywhere from like 3rd grade to 6th grade, I believe, and every year she's had at least a couple kids pretty solidly into Pokemon, and that goes back over. So that's 8 to 11-year-olds over the past decade she's been teaching now. She's always had at least a couple that were into Pokemon. So yeah, I think it's cooler than it was certainly between 2003 and 2010, obviously. Right? Yeah, but like if you were the right age, it was pretty damn cool in 1999 as well. So I don't know.
Okay, all right. But I think you bring up a good point as well. Is we're going to see this for the first time going full cycle. Because it's going to take 25 years for those kids to then grow up and then come back into it. And so now we're just now starting to enter the second cycle. So our kids are the second cycle of this, or the maybe a few generations younger than us, but they're going to be getting into that, whether it was Sun and Moon or Sword and Shield, and they're going to come back now 15 years later and probably do the same thing again. So yeah, it definitely has a perspective there. I think we have a petition for you to start doing some private cosplay?
Pirate cosplay or private cosplay.
I'm sorry, pirate. Okay, much better. I was like, man, this is going deep really fast.
We've got some characters in chat I can see, so it's going to be a fun night. I can tell.
It's going to be a good one. All right, Dan. Yeah, but I agree with you. One of the things I also noticed as I was going through that archive is you've really switched gears. You came back in, if I'm not mistaken, as a collector, like I guess many of us did, but then business took over. So when did that really happen for you, and why not collect? I mean, are the things above you not collection anymore? Is that not maybe your quote unquote taxable collection?
These definitely are. I came back into the hobby with very, very ambitious goals that I set that I honestly, I thought I'd never meet them. I wanted to open every box. I wanted to get every chase card in PSA 9. I had all of WotC, all first edition hollows in PSA 9, including base set first edition, including all the crystals. I had all the gold stars, all the old school EXs. I literally had everything. And it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn from 2014 to 2019. It was just chipping away at it on the side hobby, side hustle. I never took money out. And over time, I think I got better and better at it. I had always been familiar with eBay. I used to do video games and coins and steins. And so it got to a pretty lofty number on its own in 2019, just by the sum of all my labor across those several years. And then it had a tailwind the whole way too, because Pokemon wasn't flat from 2014 to 2019. Pokemon grew a lot more steadily than we're used to these days, the past few years, but it still grew. It had a firm tailwind. And then 2020 happened, and I became uncomfortable with the amount of my net worth that was tied up in Pokemon. I became uncomfortable with the amount of value that was inside my home, and it wasn't covered by an insurance policy because homeowners don't cover that. So many things. And then another part of it too, I completed most of my goals I had ever set. I mean, once I completed opening every box, I wanted all the chase cards in PSA 9. Like I said, I had legends in all in 9. I had primes all in 9. I was starting black and white era. I was going to do all the black and white secret rares. I was going to do all the XY secret rares. 500 plus slabs, 600 plus slabs in my collection. It was way too much quantity, way too much plastic. Sorry, Earth and all that. So then 2020 happened. The value went insane, literally life-changing amounts of money. And I just had to sell. It was already getting, due to the tailwind, it was already getting to the point where the market was starting to value it more than me. But I'd never taken money out. And selling stuff, taking money out for the first time would have been a big hurdle. But then by the time the prices went nuts, I just did it all at once. I dove in head first. It's I've just got to. It feels irresponsible for my family not to.
And didn't you say that you actually paid off your house with that transaction? That whole selling your collection kind of approach, right?
I paid off my house with Evolutions booster box cases, with $1,000 Eevees and Pikachus, with $6,000 Charizards, with a $35,000 Shadowless 9 set. It was insane, unfathomable. When I was buying and collecting all those things, I did not have a price target in mind to that scale for at least 20, 30 years out. Maybe someday this could be something meaningful towards my family's finances. And then it all happened in a matter of several months. Absolute insanity that year.
Man. And did you regret it at first? Did you have that seller's remorse? Just a little bit?
2019, 2020 was such a whirlwind. I did not have the time to even have remorse, because I was sending it all to the PWCC vault because the value was just absurd, and I couldn't justify keeping it uninsured inside my house. I was looking at policies to get it insured. I sent it all to the vault. I was selling stuff left and right. We bought a second house. We were fixing up a second house in late 2019, early 2020. And then once you move into a new house, you still have a lot of projects. Plus I had a daughter on the way. We had our first, our first child, my son was getting older, terrible twos, all that stuff. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Work was getting busy as well. The pandemic, absolute blur 2020 was. So I didn't even have the time to feel remorseful and feel regret, because another part of it too, I literally just got rid of everything. I didn't sell it all. I wish I had sold it all in hindsight, obviously, but I sold a bunch and I sent the rest to PWCC. So in one fell swoop, pretty much in a 1 or 2 month span, it was all physically like gone away from me. I couldn't see it,
Wow.
feel it anymore. A lot of it was still in the PWCC vault, but like that took a lot away from me. That took a lot of the joy away from me, not being able to see it, not being able to hold it, and I can't justify like the amount of money. I would still be uncomfortable today, uninsured,
You still had it.
insured or not, to have 6-figure collection inside my house.
It's kind of like you broke up with your girlfriend Pokemon and you sent her off to PWCC.
Yeah, it was crazy.
You sold her for money.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great story though. And I think we might probably see some of that again. It's going to be interesting where the future takes us. My goals are somewhat, I would say, small in comparison. I'm actually just honestly from a collection standpoint, that's it right there. I'm just trying to collect binders, full sets. I'm a master kind of completionist in that sense. And, just one of each and fill up the binder. And I like to flip through it and take a look at it, but I don't have a desire to collect graded cards. I'll sell them, I'll grade them, I'll flip them, but I don't have a desire to collect them just because it's not really a good way to enjoy it. I mean, flipping through slabs is not fun.
I think a binder is like the purest because it goes back to like the playground. It goes back to the school bus. It goes back to my original nostalgia, that 9-pocket page. I still have my childhood collection preserved the same way that it was when I was younger.
But I thought you sold it. I thought you broke it apart and sold it.
Nope.
No.
I sold my like adulthood collection, all the PSA 9 graded stuff, all the stuff I opened from boxes from 2014 to 2019.
Okay.
But no,
okay.
I still have base jungle fossil. I don't have it handy right next to me, but I have base jungle fossil inside of a binder.
Okay. Because I remember listening to you talk about that on one of your streams not that long ago. I thought you said you had sold it. Okay. Yeah, nice. Yeah, one of mine actually here is my Michael Jordan's baseball, basketball. That was my collection growing up. So I was a little bit older, I think, at the time for Pokemon. So I went into sports, but I still have all my Michael Jordans and holding on to them nice and firm. Yeah, I understand that for sure. Well, one of the things I think I've definitely seen as I kind of learn more about the Pokemon market is, seeing what happened. And you kind of touched on it a lot during the boom. And everybody said, well, it's going to bust. This isn't sustainable. And to a sense, it wasn't, because now prices have somewhat stabilized. I would say definitely coming out of pandemic, it definitely dropped, but it obviously doesn't drop to the previous floor. It always drops to the new floor. But I would say the hobby, at least from my perspective, and perhaps that's that bias bubble you mentioned, but it's bigger than ever. And I was wondering, how do you see it? Do you see it the same? Because you're probably moving a decent amount of product. You're probably doing it internationally, if I'm not wrong. So do you see it actually being bigger as a hobby as well? And the prices are stable?
The hobby is so diverse. Like, there are so many cards in any given year. I think in every year since 1999, I think there's been a card that is 10x'd within the span of one 12-month period. And there's been a card that's dropped by 50, 60, 80%. Like, there's just so many, especially now, because now there's like,
normal. Yeah.
Like what are there? There's 100 sets. So there's 100 sets with different packs and booster boxes. There are 20,000 plus cards. I mean, many, many tens of thousands of cards. It's almost a guarantee that every year something will 10x and something will drop 90%. So,
but do you see the numbers bigger? I mean, do you see them that much bigger?
Yeah, like if you look at any just objective metrics, 9.7 billion cards printed, and then 9.1 or whatever the year before that. If you look at, I don't know off the top of my head what the numbers are for the video games, but like Sword and Shield, the sales for the video games were massive. Same as Scarlet and Violet. I don't remember exactly where they were, but I think Sword and Shield, or maybe it was Sun and Moon. I know the last 3 generations of video games have like smashed it. Not up with like red, blue, yellow, I don't believe, but doing really, really well. So by all objective metrics that we can see, the hobby as a whole is just, absolutely killing it.
And do you see a lot going out of country for yourself in terms of what you ship?
A ton, yeah. There's definitely like WotC did its thing in 2020. Japanese promos and even some Japanese set cards had their thing going on the past few months. A lot of that Japanese stuff going into China. I've done a lot of sales directly into China through like Instagram and whatever. And then also like eBay international shipping over the past several years. Prior to that, it was eBay global shipping program. I don't know a percentage, maybe 25% of everything I sell probably
Okay.
historically has gone international, if I would have had to guess.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit lower than I thought. I thought she might say 50-50, honestly. So it seems like, China's really come on hot and strong, and they're really sucking up a lot of the desirable cards in the market.
If you went by value, it's probably closer to 50-50, honestly. But if you go by like quantity,
Yeah.
so it's almost
Yeah.
like a lot of the lower end, like English set card stuff just stays domestic. But if
Right.
you count like all those Japanese promos, the trophy type cards, those obviously lower quantity, but higher value. So yeah, probably 50-50 value wise.
And I see, at least from my point of view, that they don't really resurface as quickly. If things are bought and sold in the US, they tend to kind of recycle, and you see them back online within a short period of time, or at least shorter. And it seems like when they leave the country, they don't show up quite as quickly on eBay anymore. So they kind of stay off.
One thing I would love to do, I talked about it very briefly earlier on PokeFlipz, but I'm not like a big computer data type. Well, I'm a big spreadsheet guy, just like just simple numbers, like finance type numbers. I don't know how to like scrape pop reports. I don't know how to compile like databases of stuff, pulling from eBay, pulling from PSA, pulling from everywhere. One thing I would love to do, I would love to just see like how many Moonbryons were sold this year. And I think like, I think TCG Fish could do that for you. One thing that would be amazing though, of the 7,000 PSA 10 Umbreons, how many were sold ever? Like literally going back the last 2 years since they've been released. And then on average, per each one that's been sold, how many times was it resold? There's probably some single cards out there that have been sold like 10 times. It would just be really cool to like, it would be a massive undertaking, I would think. Looking at one card alone, it would be a lot. But
I don't know if it'd be worth it. You have to get the algorithm to figure it out and do it across all cards. But yeah, it would be really cool in metrics. And I can't wait to see what TCG Fish comes back with when they finally open up the site back again and have the full feature set, because I've been waiting for that for some time now.
I love websites like that.
Oh man, it's great. And it's free. Awesome.
Yeah.
One of the other areas I think that really ties well into the technology is pulling back up this idea of the AI grading. Technology is kind of my background, done a lot of things around AI space in the past 5 or so years, a lot of cloud, development stuff in terms of software. And this AI topic has been on topic for many, many years. I think you even talked about it 2 or 3 years back. And it was also, I think, on the recent podcast with the CEO from PSA. He even mentioned it a little bit. So what's your take on it? I know that it's definitely going to be maybe some different perspectives, but I wanted to hear what your view on AI grading would be, and if you think that's even something feasible for the future.
I think several years ago, I can probably have been quoted, like pre-YouTube days, probably back on E4. I was probably quoted somewhere as saying that I don't believe computers will ever fully grade cards. Tag is doing it now. AGS is doing it now. Like there are definitely... They're probably not the only 2 companies. I know that PokeChloe just dropped a video, I think it was today or yesterday, that showed that Ace is using, it's not like AI, but it's just like a computer assisted for measuring the centering and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm much more open these days that someday it might be a more just computer fully automated. You put the card, I mean, like I said, AGS and Tag I think are already doing it. So whether that will completely shatter all the norms and take down PSA and become the new thing of the future, and that's all anyone uses, I don't know if it'll go that far, but clearly it's a thing. It's around tens of thousands of cards a year at minimum are being graded already in that fashion.
Yeah, and I think when you get into the devil in the details on this one, you definitely see some challenges they're going to have around when you do AI. It's a lot about model driven, so you have to feed it massive amounts of data. And part of the problem that they're going to have is the cards are always changing, not necessarily the size or the general format and layout, because obviously the title and the picture is usually somewhat in the same place. But then you have all the nuances, the images sometimes going off the border. The border is changing. Then you mix it with of course, the fact that we have a set coming out every 3 months. It's the amount of data model that you would have to manage to make that accurate. And then if you didn't, the amount of errors that you would have outbound before you could catch it would be so high. I think we're still pretty far away. It's easy to do centering because with the cards that are not obviously crossing over the borders and things of that nature, but it's easier to do something like a centering or looking for some altered cards or something like that. But to say every card can be verified, I think we're still probably another 5 or 8 years away from even touching that. And even then it's going to be etchy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the other things I was thinking, Alex has been talking a lot about his modern taking over vintage. And I don't disagree. I mean, some of the things that are definitely happening in the spaces that I'm in, when I go play TCG games at the local LGS shop, it's definitely a big favorite of modern. My kids, I have lots of old WotC and Diamond and Pearl. And when I would go to trade with my kids, they pick out Crown Zenith cards. So they definitely like it as well. Do you see that from a sales perspective and from a business point of view? Is your main non-auction items going to be modern and you're just auctioning off all your old stuff, or do you see it differently?
Modern is where the liquidity lies. Modern,
yeah.
One thing that I've mentioned recently multiple times is every business that removes capital from the hobby, going all the way up the chain to Pokemon itself, all the selling platforms, all the grading companies, most of the capital is removed from the hobby through the newest sets, through the newest releases. So all the marketing, all the hype, all the FOMO, all everything is around Ultra Modern, and it always has been. I actually I have a spreadsheet here I'm looking at that there are several like the dark days from 2004 to 2014. There are many instances where like let me pick a year at random. Well,
if you want to share, you can.
Not completely random. This is like juicy paywall stuff.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
1 year in particular that I found data. EX Hidden Legends came out in 2004. That booster box was selling for $108. That was the most expensive booster box available in that year. The most modern, base was $40. Jungle was $40. Legendary collection was $60. Wow. Skyridge was $81. And I'm talking actual available. The way that this data was found was using the Wayback Machine. So the bubble popped so bad and things were so down in 2004. Literally vintage was dead. Ultra Modern was barely alive. I mean, boxes 108 was pretty high. I mean, I think retail back then would have been $2.99 a pack. So retail would have been 108. This was literally $2.99 a pack. This was full MSRP. And it probably wasn't selling amazingly, but it's just crazy. Like there is precedent. There are times throughout the history where the most ultra modern sets were actually the most expensive and all vintage was just completely dead because that's how dead the hobby was. And to a lesser degree, but there were like several years later, there were many instances where the newest were a little bit more hype. And like by the time you get into the early 2010s, a lot of the other boxes were drifting up more, but definitely 2004 is a very interesting like case study.
That's neat, man. I didn't know it was that kind of a layout then.
Yep.
Retro.
Yeah.
Who's buying boxes for 65 back in Nam? Mr. Roller says, we're all here. We're all behind the paywall. I'll just show it.
There are a decent amount of paywallers in the chat right now.
But no, that's good stuff. I mean, I would see the same. I was just curious if you saw that same through your own eBay store as well. Speaking of E4, I think you mentioned a few sentences back. I don't hear much about it anymore. Every now and then it's dropped in a few sentences. It's dropped in a few conversations. Where is E4 these days? Are you still participating? Is it still a big thing? I haven't personally joined, but I thought about it. I was like, I'm getting most of the information I need elsewhere.
I'm a super boomer. Like I'm doing the Discord thing now because I run a Patreon that has a Discord and I spend too much time in Discord. But honestly, there's a lot of things I like about forums better than Discords. Discords, it just feels like you're in a busy train station and you're trying to talk to like someone 50 feet over that way. And there's 20 conversations going on this and that way. If you're in like the paywall one is not so rapid, not so crazy. But if you're in some of the really big ones, if you're in like Alex's lately has been insane.
Yeah,
it's so
today
busy.
It was crazy.
The E4 one can be pretty busy from time to time. I've not been in that one much more recently either. But pre-Pokemon, pre-2014, when I was into coins, I was big on the Kitco forums. I've just always liked forums. I don't know why.
That's your thing.
Yeah, it's just I'm a boomer. So I like the Kitco forums. I used to be on RuneScape forums going way back in the day. Yeah. So like Tip It forums,
Yeah.
Zybez, some
You get
RuneScape
on
forums,
bulletin boards, man.
some coin forums, and then E4. Like I still have a soft spot for E4. Most of my like deepest connections, my deepest friendships in the hobby, a lot of them were started back in 2014 to 2016 on E4. So weird, like I don't even know all the things that happened, the whole Mount Moon E4 split, and they went to their own website, and I don't know all the dirty dark details behind what happened there exactly, but I have friends on both sides of it, so
You still
a
use it
little
though?
bit of I'm on there, like I migrated my account over, but I've probably posted like 10 times in the past year or something. I've tried getting back into my schedule. I've tried checking it more regularly. I actually have some like loose ends I want to tie up there, some articles that I started that I never finished, but it's just tough. It's like I'm so busy these days. It's tough to get back there. The time that I feel like wasting on a forum, instead I do it in a Discord. So it's
Or
hard to
live
do
stream.
both. Or live stream. Yeah, it's hard to do both. Like if I quit going in Discord, if I quit going on YouTube so much, I could have time, but like I'm just not prioritizing, I guess.
I think your day today has been probably the most live streams you've had in a while. You got like 3 live streams in one day. Perfect. No time for E4.
Yeah.
Tell me about your perspective on pop reports, man. I mean, there's lots of controversy. I think the perspective has to change. What used to be standard in pop reports is no longer the case, especially with growth in the hobby, more cards coming in, more grading obviously happening. What do you do with pop reports, if anything? Do you look at them? Does it help you make purchase decisions or investing decisions?
I've made the jokes recently that, well, not even really a joke, like actually serious. Every card that's 5-digit pop, every card that has more than 10,000 in the pop or will have more than 10,000 in the pop, I want to be there. Because where I mean, you need to be careful because you can get an illustration Charizard. You can get a Charizard V from the Champion's Path ETB. But liquidity, there's tons of liquidity in those super popular promos, those super popular set cards with those high pops. As far as holding them 5, 10, 20 years, I wouldn't want to be there personally. I want to be the one grading them and then selling them into the market for a margin. But I think pops matter. If you're holding cards very long term, pops certainly matter. How many of a card out there matters. But the other side of it that matters too is demand. Most cards that have much, much higher pops generally have much, much higher demands. But the thing you need to be very, very careful of, cards that are coming out today are getting preserved at much higher rates than they ever historically have. The pops are shooting up to 10, 20,000 within the first year. Those 10, 20,000 cards, there will be some attrition. Not everyone will have every card available for sale forever, but the attrition is going to be substantially lower. Think about the CD promos. That would actually be the CD promo Charizard, the ones that Gary graded 5,000 each of and did with Golden on Home Shopping Network or whatever. That's one of the cards that if you could dig into the cert data, how many of those old cards are coming up compared to how many new cert cards are coming up? Like the attrition on those was probably really high because they spent a decade worthless. They spent a decade where you could probably hardly even sell them. And maybe Ultra Modern will go through that too. If it doesn't, I think the attrition won't be high enough that like a lot of these cards will just be available. Sure, the demand is all-time high right now or right up there 20 years from now. Like that's kind of Alex's argument, right? The demand is super high right now. These people will come back 20 years and they'll want the same cards. The thing is they'll want the same cards and they'll be there. People coming back now wanting the base first Charizard. There's only 110 or 120 in PSA 10. People wanting base Jungle Fossil. You're only looking at a few hundred of each PSA 10. Whereas in 20 years, you're going to be looking at 10,000 of each PSA 10.
Well, the pops only go down.
Yeah.
Same thing with sealed product. Sealed product and pops only go down.
I mean, seal goes up and pop goes down, right?
I love it. But I mean, in all honesty, are you looking at some pops before you start to make any purchase decisions? Is it that much of a factor for you, or are you just giving your general opinion on it if you were holding, or do you also use it in your business cases?
I don't buy slabs. I mean, if I buy slabs, I'm buying at 60 or 70% and I'm immediately selling them. Now that I can sign, I very, very unlikely will ever buy any substantial amount of slabs again. It's like I would rather consign it for 95%. Like I can't compete with myself. I mean, people like I can consign it. If it's sub 250, I can consign it for 80%. Or like if it's over 250, I can do it through the vault. I can give you 95% of sale price. Why are you going to take 60 or 70% from me when you can consign it through me or James or somebody else and just get like 80%, 80 to 95%, depending on how you consign it. So I don't want to put that much cap. Like I'm not speculating long-term value on any plastic.
I hear you.
I sell slabs.
It's not even a part of your plays either. So you don't say, hey, I'm gonna make this play for Japanese cards promos, and I want to look at the pops before I buy the singles and before I grade.
If I'm looking at Japanese promos, I'm buying them raw and I'm grading them. There's no,
no pop analysis.
I mean, I'll look at the 10 rate. Like one thing that I spilled the beans on recently, the 001 SVP has a 20% black label rate at BGS. I bought 300 of them, and 100 of them are at PSA, and 100 at CGC, and 100 at BGS. I mean, as I say, it's just math. Do the math on it. Do the math on the EV. Obviously, the black label price is going to come down a bunch. Numbers lie.
just say it. Just say it.
So yeah, I look at pops to do like an EV calculation of what I can expect to earn by grading a bunch of a single card. But you have to always
outside of that,
you have to make sure that you're taking into account the fact that you're going to move the price a lot. Like if I think over the past few months, only 5 or so black label 001 SVPs have sold on eBay. When my 100 cards come back, if 20 or 25 of them are black labels, I can't just dump them all same day. Like I need to be a little strategic about it. I probably shouldn't talk about them all on YouTube either, but I will.
Quantity of 20, purchase now, buy now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. All right, man. Well, we'll dive over a little bit now to the business side. I've heard you speak a lot about it in terms of keeping it, again, as I mentioned in the chat earlier today, keeping a single man business operation. That's your goal. You're happy, parable of the fisherman. But what's your goals for the business, man? Are you looking for any specific revenue generation? Are you trying to achieve a facility to store product? I mean, what's your goals? I haven't heard you speak to that.
I'm fully exceeding all my goals right now. My goal is a happy life. My goal is a financially secure life. And my like short to medium term goal, depending on how the market goes, the next 2 to 5 years, it could be as soon as. But if you had asked me 10 years ago, my goal would have been by 40 to be like financially independent. I've had a desire to be financially independent where not that I'm going to retire and never work again, but I could have the option to if I wanted to. By the time my kids graduate high school, approximately, is when I just want to be able to have anyone familiar with like the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, the 4% rule. My annual spending, I want to have 25%, 25 times my annual spending. I want to have invested, not all accessible, not all in a brokerage account, but in tax advantage accounts, plus brokerage accounts, IRAs, 401ks, all that stuff. And I'm on the trajectory to do it like relatively soon if things hold. So that's my immediate short-term goal. And then once I get there, once I have that, like I have a good foundation now. Once I have that foundation, I can get a little crazy. I can take some risks because it's like, I mean, I'm taking some risks now for sure with all my exposure to cardboard, but I might be able to get a lot more risky. Maybe I can invest a little bit. Maybe I can speculate a little bit more. Who knows? Maybe I'll collect a little bit more once I have that foundation in place. Probably not, but maybe.
Hire your first employee, Dan.
I don't want to, like, anecdotally, my dad has had employees. He owns his own business. I know a lot of people who are business owners who've just had nightmarish scenarios, and I don't want to be HR and deal with headaches that'll pop up. People are people. And even if you get really good people, I mean, I just know so many friendships lost and so many things that have gone like, I have more than I need now. I have more than enough. So I've been saying a lot lately, the word enough exists. And I have more than enough already. So why try, like, why do more? Why try to expand the parable of the Mexican fisherman? I mean, that's the whole.
We got a serious question here from Mr. Walrus. How much farther do you think you'd be if you weren't, trolling in all the live streams?
It's good for branding, right? I mean, I come up in a lot of other people's live stream. It's good for branding. Like I'm on people's minds.
Sure.
Anytime you hear about fishing or a fisherman, like, oh, you think Dan Ketchum All Collectibles. Anytime you hear about spreadsheets, and I mean, I come up in a lot of live streams. I'm getting the word out there.
That's right.
For the size of my channel and all that, at least in our little bubble, I come up quite a bit. I have quite the presence at this point.
You hear it, everybody. Negative marketing works. It works. All right, man. So you've already really touched on, I think, your perspective lately. What I haven't really heard clearly, but I can see it from your eBay store, you don't actually do much anything outside of slabs. Is that really your focus from a business point of view? You don't touch on collections, singles, nothing. You just grade, slab, and then everything else, I guess, is in boxes that you don't want to look at.
One thing that's like I have a Troll and Toad Evo account right now that I'm not.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's going away. So I actually had Troll and Toad Evo not terminated the program, I would be selling more this year on Troll and Toad Evo than I would be selling on eBay.
I think I heard somewhere you said your financials were higher there than it was on eBay in terms of sales.
I was going to be selling, I was on pace to sell mid 6 figures to high 6 figures on Troll and Toad this year. Next year, I was going to do 7 figures on Troll and Toad Evo had it continued where it was going.
Are they just canceling it? I'm not familiar with it.
They're just terminating the program. They have new ownership, new leadership, and they're just pivoting away. I think there's something to be said about they were enabling their competition essentially. I mean, to some extent, like why sell my item and take a cut from it when they can just up the game on their own sourcing and then sell their own products and get all the money from it? Like why take 10 or 20% of a cut from my sales when they can take 95% of a cut from their own sales? It's more capital intensive, but there's a lot of considerations that go on and that I'm not privy to, but very, very interesting.
Are you going to look at TCG Play or Direct or anything else as an alternative?
Yeah, there are so many things that I need to continue to look into. ComC is something that I'm actually actively doing right now. I need to send more to them. Check out my cards. It's called. It's like ubiquitous in the sports sphere. It's ubiquitous in the sports sphere. Everyone talks about it, knows about it. If you watch any sports content, which I've been watching a little bit more lately, a couple podcasts, and Sports Card Dad, I think, is one of them that I like. He does ComC ads all the time, but it's an abbreviation for check out my cards, and they have like 30 million singles. 30 million singles, I think it is, listed on their site. All different sports, all different Pokemon, non-TCG. One thing that's great about them that didn't work for Evo, basically you just send to them, you pay per item to get it in there. It's a lot more expensive than Evo, but they do everything. Like I sent them some Power Rangers cards. I sent them Harry Potter cards. Like I sent them a lot of stuff that Evo doesn't touch. A lot of things that I don't want to sell myself. So ComC is a little bit Evo-esque, but nowhere near as good, and it's a lot more expensive. And then TCG Player, specifically not TCG Player Direct, but TCG Player Store Your Products, Direct Store Your Products. So that's a little bit more like Evo. That's something that's on my radar. I need to do a lot more work into it sometime between now and February, because February 1st is where Troll and Toad is going to tell me, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here with my hundreds of thousands of items. Yeah, like with crazy amounts of stuff.
But so then you've been backlogging everything you got now for sure. You see anything good you want me to bring up?
And I do tons of sealed product. Like most of my allocation goes there. So I need to find a new outlet, new avenues for a lot of different product lines, or I need to substantially lower my allocations moving ahead, or lower the portion of allocations I take. I see mostly just trolling by Walrus and Brad. That one was good. 30 million singles sounds like the product collecticon. That's a real good one.
I like it. Pokemon card community heavily underused comments.
Yeah, ComC is very, very interesting. It's
I'll have to check it out.
I think it's 50 cents a card. You send it to them. It takes like a couple months for your cards to get populated in. they suggest what the price is for the cards. You put your own pricing in there. It's a lot more tedious. Like I might be using it wrong too. I might not be utilizing it most efficiently as possible. But the CSV feature, the spreadsheet feature of Evo was amazing. I don't think COMC has that, but they might. I need to look into it more.
Well, I'll share one that I share with Alex as well. I've been using Binder POS. Have you used that? So Binder POS, yeah, I use it. I use it quite extensively now. So I was going through all my singles, and the thing that for me was stopping from even starting was I'm not going to manage prices on 10,000 cards. Just not going to happen. And so what's the better way to do this from a technology standpoint? So I ran across Binder POS, and it does a beautiful integration between Shopify, eBay, and TCG Player. Now it's owned, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but it's owned by TCG Player, which is therefore owned by eBay. So it's quite ironic, but basically it's a very similar setup. They do sealed and singles. They don't do graded, unfortunately. And they adjust the market prices daily, every 12 hours, actually. So all the prices are automatically updated. You can group them. You can say by set up or down percentages. You can kind of choose and pick what you want. The typical, moderately played, heavily played, whatever you want. But basically just run through it and it creates all the listings. It creates all the products. That's it. So you manage it in one place and all the prices are automatically updated. I love it. And I'm so glad I have it because otherwise I would not be able to load these kind of cards in there.
The main thing for me is the storage is a little bit of one if you're getting into the bulkier sealed product, which Evo takes care of. TCG Player Store Your Products takes care of. Fulfillment is the big one. Like I could pull up my Evo right now. I am selling on average like 200 items a day through Troll and Toad Evo right now. I can't do that. One, I actually could do that if I did nothing else. That would be miserable. Today I sold.
That'd be the end of Dan's live streams.
208 units I sold on Troll and Toad Evo. In the past 90 days, 15,000 units I sold through Troll and Toad Evo. Not 15,000 unique orders, but 15,000 units.
Right, cards. And it's probably lower dollar amounts, so those are all, 10,000 envelopes and, card savers and all that kind of stuff. So, that would not be possible.
I would need employees to do that, and I don't plan to do that. So a lot of that will just go away. A lot of that I just won't do anymore. But I'm actually going to do a video. I think my video Monday is going to be about scaling. It's going to be about the way I have scaled, the way I continue, the way I intend to continue to scale. But you really, you run into bottlenecks, and the main bottleneck is time. And outsourcing is what you need to start to do thereafter. Do the things that you are the best at and do the things that you enjoy the most and make you the most money hourly. Outsource everything else you possibly can.
I love it.
You can't outsource. I mean, next in line would be, or maybe first in line for most people, I just don't want to do it, would be hire people, outsource it to your employees and scale that way. But I already have more than enough. I just need to optimize what I have. I have a special folder in my email that Pongo's resumes go into.
Oh, it's called JUNK.
Yeah.
15,000 units, $200. Terrible.
No, the gross is actually pretty gross. It's pretty sad to look at my Evo numbers and know what's going to be missing. It's going
to take it away. That's going to be tough, man.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see where you go next with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'm figuring things out as I go, but I'm really gonna have to figure stuff out this winter because it's gonna be a drastic change. Sorry,
I didn't mean to lose your sub. And it looks like Retro's right behind.
Hopefully he's unsubbing from me, not unsubbing from you. While you guys are here, there's 29 watching and there's only 16 likes. So bump up the likes, bump up those sub numbers while you guys are here. Always
before you leave. Before you unsub, sub and like, and then you can unsub.
Make sure you hit it like an odd. Well, if you've been subbed, make sure you hit an even number of times. If you've not yet been subbed, make sure you hit an odd number of times.
I forgot to mention though on the Binder POS topic, one of the things I also loved about it is it does all the pictures for you. Now they're all stock pictures, and I thought, people are going to like this. They're going to want, hey, send me a bunch of photos. I don't get any of that. Every now and then I might get one. And if it's a higher dollar item, like 2,000, something like that, I'll take a picture, physically. But otherwise, nobody asked. Nobody asked for any pictures, so I was quite surprised.
That's where Troll and Toad and TCG Player are very similar. They have one like broad listing that everyone funnels into, and it's sorted by price.
Exactly.
Whereas eBay, there could be 1,000 different listings for Obsidian Flames ETB. Like there's not one, and then everyone's sorted by price. There's just 1,000 different people. Some people doing promoted, some people just listing low, like all these different things. And it opens up opportunities. It opens up opportunities to platform arbitrage and things of that nature.
Yeah, things fall in the hole, and if you find them, it's good times. Good times. Tell me a little bit about your auction experience. We've been giving you a hard time in the chats and the recent lives. I think you did your apology video recently, so you've officially went back on your word. You're no longer the buy it now man. I know you did it to get rid of inventory. You mentioned it. You said you had massive amount of inventory. You want to get rid of it. Is it working? I mean, do you see those kind of flying through? They won't end until Sunday, though, right?
Yeah, it's 319 auctions on my own page, and then it's like 150 that I sent out between a few different consignment houses. It's funny because like I've been and mostly just memeing on James. James runs the auction consignment service, ZNG Emporium. I'm mostly just busting his chops, but it's like it's just become this thing. So it's been over a year and a half since I've auctioned items on my own personal account, and it's something I periodically have done over the years. I've always preferred buy it now. 90+% of my sales have been buy it now. But quarterly, maybe twice a year, I would just flush out 50 or 100 cards. Now that I'm bigger, now that I've scaled more, the number's bigger. I got to flush out, like I showed, if anyone stuck around 8, 9, 10 minutes in that video, I showed my like mystery slab listings that I've sold 600 slabs through or whatever between the three of them. And so between the mystery slab listings and between these auctions, I just need to, I mean, I'm on pace to sell, how many items is it? I don't even really remember, but I sell about 20 a day. So I'm selling 8,000 a year. Like that's quite a bit of stuff. So I know Alex was busting my chops a little bit about, oh, you're selling all that vintage and all that mid-era stuff that never sold. Well, I'm literally only selling 400 slabs from the past year and a half. In the past year and a half,
you've had thousands though.
I probably sold 15,000 slabs. So these are 400, 500 slabs that accumulated over the past 15,000 slabs that I've sold. Just to give context, counting the additional 500, a lot of that was like dark CGC stuff that I did during the boom. But I will. Moving ahead, I'll be auctioning every 6 months or so, maybe a couple times a year, or maybe I'll just chuck them all to Probstein so I don't have to have the shame of having an auction on my own account.
Oh, do you want to have an apology video every couple of weeks? Yeah, so you got to buy the wiggly plushie. Yeah, you got to have it. Yeah, as Walrus says, makes a good seat.
I'm always
Oops, sorry.
I'm bullish on plushes, but that one, that one, I'm not feeling it.
No,
I don't know what it is, but.
I wanted to go back though. Have you actually done some of the promotional listings on the auction? I've found that to be quite worth the money, the $1.99, whatever you're going to spend on it. I've done a few of those. I don't do it for slabs, but I've done it on some higher booster boxes, and I've seen a difference of a couple $100 in the sale price versus the buy it now price. So definitely, it was worth it to me. I was mentioning the same thing to Alex. Doing that promotion on the listing actually worked out pretty well.
I think last time I auctioned on my own account, like I said, it was late 2021. So, I mean, over a year and a half ago, maybe very early 2022. But I don't even think that was a feature at that point. I don't think I had the option to promote auctions individually like that. I have heard people talk about it. I didn't opt to promote any of them in this batch that I'm sending. I don't know that I ever will. The stuff that I'll be auctioning will just be like fairly rough stuff generally.
You don't want to lose any more profit margins than you're already going to lose.
There's actually decent stuff right now on auction. There's some like low pop mid-air stuff from that big collection I bought. And periodically I'll have some like random mid-air, random vintage. I'll probably have some decent stuff periodically, but 95% will sell through buy it now. And then it'll only be like 5% of them selling a couple times a year. through auctions as needed.
Retro says, notice he doesn't make any, MetaZoo graded return videos anymore.
MetaZoo native treated me very well. It's been a long time since I'm still a MetaZoo partner, but I'm pivoting heavily the way that I'm interacting with MetaZoo. I'll talk about it more in a video probably this Saturday. But
okay.
Graded
That's your
MetaZoo,
reference here.
Graded MetaZoo has not been kind to me lately. So raw and sealed. I mean, native and seance did very, very well for me. So even UFO. I mean, UFO is dark right now as far as sealed boxes, but like I cracked packs. I did a mass box break, and singles did well for me.
And Brad says, don't kill your YouTube momentum with MetaZoo videos.
Yeah. You can tell I clearly I don't sweat all the stuff that YouTubers are supposed to do. Cause like, yeah, I do a RuneScape stream and then I don't delist it. I know a lot of people that will like do a stream and then they'll delist it, or they'll delist it if it doesn't get enough views, or I leave all my shorts up, all my failed shorts that get like 500 views. And yeah, I don't sweat the stuff like that at all.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I do the same. I don't really take anything down. I just think, whatever, we'll see where it lands. It's a good history. Look back on it.
I accidentally doxed myself once or twice where I showed my personal email and I had to go back and like I pulled it down for an hour or two while the censor bars could finish updating. But other than that, like every video I've ever posted, every live I've ever posted is just fully up and available. Just a couple with like slight censor bars going on.
Hello Kitty's about to replace Pokemon portraits in the background.
I mean, second highest grossing media franchise ever, right? Right behind Pokemon.
I don't know. I think those Pokemon ones look pretty good. I wouldn't go for Hello Kitty if I was you. You mentioned you just bought collections. Are you still doing collections? I thought you were more focusing on sourcing singles. Are you still going for binders and buyouts?
I've bought some here and there, but it's just with my massive backlog of stuff I need to do and get through. One further complicating thing is like 4 weeks from now, school starts back up and I might not have a sitter. Like I might be pivoting in 4 weeks to working nights. I'll have my daughter during the day. My son and wife will be at school, and I'll be working from like 4 p.m. till dinner. And I'll be able to do a little bit, and then I'll do a little bit between dinner and their bedtime. I'll do their bedtime with them, and then I'll be working from 9 to midnight, which half the time I'm working 9 to midnight now. So I might be working 50-hour weeks to like 35-hour weeks. I don't know what I'll be able to fit in. It's going to be tough, like this winter potentially.
I can speak from experience. It's no easy job, man. When you have the kids at home, it takes a lot from you. You'll go back to shipping only once a week. Yeah,
I can't. I mean, I can't at this point. Like, I'll need to iron out the details in a few weeks, and then with the whole told thing looming, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I have to get sorted out in the next 4 to 6 months.
I wish you the best of luck, Dan. I know it's gonna be a challenge, man. The good news is it's your business. You do it when you want, how you want it. So that's the positive news. The bad news is customer gave you cash or gave you money, and now you need to ship the orders.
And I have customers on two ends now, because I have the customer I have to ship the item to, and I have the consignment customer too. So definitely going to stick with daily shipments. Definitely going to stick with all that stuff. Keep the top rated. Keep the discount. But it'll be a little bit of a thing to sort out how I go about doing it. My scheduling.
Tell me where you get your supplies from, man. I know I've seen a lot of references. You pull up a couple of boxes here and there. Are you just doing something in mass when you do your BCW boxes and your storage boxes, your card savers? Are you just buying it all in mass from some random store, or do you still do it individually?
I buy some stuff through like my distributors. I buy like a lot of the supplies though are actually cheaper buying in bulk on eBay than buying through your actual distributor. Like I buy mostly card savers and penny sleeves and stuff just right on eBay. I actually have a tab on my website on KetchumAllCollectibles.com. I have a tab, products I use, all my affiliate links to all my supplies, all my packing supplies, all my stream equipment, all my stuff like that. Most of it's eBay and Amazon.
I'm surprised. And you did distribution way back in the day. You were 2014, 2015, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got...
Oh man.
He is a fisherman, so eating tuna out of a can, isn't too far from the sea.
Oh, gotta love the live chats.
Yeah, they burn us up sometimes. Talk to me a little bit about your overseas approach. Are you focused more on English these days, more Japanese? Are you really getting into Chinese? Where's your origin of language?
I do mostly English. I'm tapped into distribution on English. I am doing increasing Japanese, primarily promos, primarily high popularity, high population promos that I'm grading just in mass, like the Nagaba EVs I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
the 001 SVPs. There's definitely a decent mix, but primarily English, then Japanese. Chinese, I know there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of like free tendy situations that may not pan out to be free. Like there's definitely a risk involved, but there's a lot of money being made in Chinese right now. I'm not really pursuing that. Like all the different Lily boxes, all the different re-releases they're doing. I'm not touching any of those personally right now.
I'll have to get retro on that one next week then.
Yeah.
I'm sure if anybody's tapping in the Chinese market, it's going to be retro. We'll see. Now, I've definitely seen it explode when it comes to the Chinese market, but I mean, the fact that they're reprinting so much across so many sets, man, it's almost too much to take in. I mean, they're doing like 4 or 5 sets in a single release. It's crazy.
It's so hard to keep up with everything. Like it's absolutely crazy. I mean, if you're trying to keep up with for a while, I was buying 50 to 100 of every Japanese booster box, but the nightmare that is, like, English is kind of rough given that you only get your initial allocation and then you can't restock anything. You can only restock it if it's rough. Like you can restock Scarlet and Violet right now because it's selling on TCG Player for 100 or 95 or whatever. You can restock it at 95 or 92 through your distributor, but yeah, you can't make margin. So whereas Japanese, it's like I bought some boxes at around 100 and then they went down to 50. So then I bought more. Retail's like 30, 35. I don't have clean access to that. Then all the reseals and Japanese is just tough because I don't have the advantages I have of having the connections to the distribution side of English.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are still doing the Tenso type approach and ordering what they can, or they have a connection over in Japan. I was mentioning to Alex, I got a couple of good friends in Singapore through the community here, but other than that, it's a tough, man. It's a scary place to be. Is your distribution, going back to the English side of things, is it still pretty tough? Because you can hear many of the LGS owners talk about this in the perspective the margins are gone. Are you seeing the same thing? And they're just forcing upon you auxiliary products, and I mean, is that really what you see as well, or?
The terminology that people use, like you never have to take anything. I know that some verbiage was added to my allocation portal for one of my distributors. If I fail to take something, like just like on eBay, if someone clicks buy it now and then doesn't pay, you can't force them to pay. So literally up until the day that they charge my card and ship, I could theoretically decline anything I want to decline from my distributor. That said, if I pre-order 120 boxes, 10 cases of some set box, and then I fail to take it, they're going to take all my future allocations away.
Right,
but that's only
screwed.
For stuff that I have pre-ordered. That's only for stuff that I have verbally committed to or contractually committed to by placing the pre-order in the portal. But they can't physically, like, actually make you take it. Like, if things got so bad, I could literally just close out my account, delete my credit card from it. I mean, things aren't that dark. Things aren't that dark that I'm intending to do that whatsoever. But they give you the good stuff in proportion to how much of the bad stuff you buy, generally speaking. So, like, it is true that you need to take more of the junk to get more of the good stuff, because if they have 100 pallets of something, if they have, just say 100 units, whatever the unit is, pallets, like whatever, and they have to distribute it between 10 accounts, they're going to proportionally do it to the ones with the most spend. Like, if one account is 50% of the spend, they're going to get 50% of the allocation if they want it. And if you're that tiny account, with only 1% of the spend, and 1% works out to be like, well, oh, it's half of a booster box. You might just get none of the reprint wave, or you might literally get nothing. So it's a little bit like dramatic, I think, to say that they force anyone to do anything, because ultimately,
of course, yeah, okay.
You can just like cut and run if you want. And some people are cutting and running, and that's why they changed the verbiage on my one. They say that you will be suspended for 6 months from getting any of the good stuff, basically, or something of that nature. you will. If I fail to take anything I pre-ordered, I think I will forfeit all the good stuff for the next 6 months, or maybe it's 90 days, something like that. Yeah.
But I mean, it's not even you're holding down now, from my opinion, at least what I can tell. You're not doing it because you're making massive profit margins. That's not why you're,
like, most of my stuff was going to Troll and Toad, and it was making bigger margins than I would have expected. I'm told by other people that I'm an investor. My intent for buying my allocations was to buy it, sit on it for a couple years, and then sell it when I can make a little bit of margin. Nothing crazy, but it's like
you said it yourself today, Dan. You said you put it back, invest for the future. I heard you, Dan.
It's all semantics, right? It's all semantics. There are tax implications to different holding periods and what you're actually doing with it. So I do whatever the most tax efficient thing is that my accountant tells me to do. So, but yeah, my Scarlet and Violet, my Pal D evolved. That's all just sitting right now. I think I sold. I'm in a tight spot. Well, not in a tight spot. Like I'm in a weird spot with Troll and Toad Evo, because like by the time February comes around, I will have tens of cases, not like hundreds of cases, but I will have tens of cases of ultra modern product. They're going to be offering me less than I paid to buy it out from me. I could sell it to the end consumer for less than I paid net, or I could pay money to get them to ship it back to me to have more of a product I can't sell for margin. So I'm probably going to take a loss on some amount of my allocations of stuff from the past few sets. It just is what it is. It's not like 10% loss, something like that. It's not a huge deal, especially in the face of like all the gains, all the wins that I've had over the past couple of years through Troll and Toad. So it's all just taken in context, and it's all fine.
Yeah, and I mean, I've tried to get into distribution now for most of this year, and obviously, as you know, it's not happening. It's if you don't have a brick and mortar, they're still not taking it on. Right there, you got it. Confirmed. I saw this Walrus. We'll have retro on next week, so check back. We'll do it on Thursday, but roughly the same time. So good stuff. Exposed. See, we all got you on video, Dan. You're an investor at heart, because I think I heard you say I'm gonna save 25 cases and I'm gonna hold it. If I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna hold that
humble 25 cases. I mean, I call that speculating / just retailing it, just slowly. I'm a slow mover.
Okay.
The thing that makes me personally not an investor, in my opinion, again, semantics, who cares? My price target is like 2 to 5 years. I want to start selling them in the 150 to 200 range for a little bit of profit, get some of my money out. And if and when that box goes to 200 within a year or within 6, 12, 18 months, I'm just going to sell it all and I'll move it into the next one. I don't have any Evolving Skies left because the price went nuts. Like I'm not guaranteed to be holding this stuff 2 to 5 years, because if the numbers are right earlier, I'm just going to dump them. Like I'm going to get rid of them sooner for sure.
I know you've mentioned it a few times, but if you're sitting on 10 cases of Scarlet and Violet and you have negative 10% profit margins, I mean, you're going to wait probably at least until you hit positive 10, positive 15 before you even think about selling at this point. So, I mean, you're literally not going to hold much longer than probably 20, 30%. At that point, you're going to be fire selling them.
It all comes down to cash flow. Like if it takes 2 years to get back to where I can sell it for 10, 20, 30% gains, if my cash flow situation is just massively different, like 2, 3, 4 years from now, I might hit that FI number. I might hit 25 times my annual expenses and savings. And I might just, hey, I'm going to hold these till they're 500, whether that's 5 years or 15 or 25 years, like whatever. I don't know. Who knows? But as of right now, that's what my plans are, and we'll see where it goes.
That's a lot of cases for some bears.
It's funny. Simultaneously, I'm an investor and I'm a bear. It's like, pick one. Which one am I? I mean, I guess I'm just dumb if I'm both, right? I'm just a terrible investor who thinks it's going to go down, but I'm investing in it. Like, it's funny. It's funny.
Well, but you're also running a Pokemon business and you think it's going to crash any day now. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know what I've got going on. I mean, a
this
lot of
is,
people have a lot of ideas on what I'm doing. I'm just a fisherman over here. I don't know what I'm doing.
my troll for you and all the chats is do as Dan does, not as Dan says.
Yeah. I've seen that one come up a couple times already.
Yep. Question. Let's see what we got here from Mr. Walrus. How much is enough? Seems like you have a lot.
Enough is like financial security for my family. Once I get that 25 times spending, like my foot is already off the gas. I'm already coasting. If I was really maximize money, I need to be a deca millionaire before I die. I need to just like, who cares about family, happiness, all that stuff. I would be a chemical engineer alongside doing this. I would be working 100 hours a week, 110 hours a week, grinding both, making buku bucks. I would be double dipping as a chemical engineer, doing as much eBay as I could during the day on the clock. And some people go that route, but I'm not going that route. I've already got my foot off the gas some. I'm not hiring a babysitter. Like if and when my daughter's going to be home with me and I'm not going to have a babysitter that comes to my house, I'm going to really take my foot off the gas for the next year. And I'm going to spend time with my daughter and focus on raising her and bonding with her. And instead of paying someone to watch her so that I can do this. And that gets a lot more different conversations between my wife and I and why we don't want to do it. But yeah, that's
No, I'm right there with you. And I would even say, you know, as I said to you in the stream before, or in the chat before, you know, kids are 8 and 5. My wife and I both work. She's an engineer as well. And if we could have spent those earliest years at home with them, we would have loved to do that. So if you get a chance to do that, Dan, and you're in a position, take that time because you'll never regret it, man. I promise you that.
I mean, I was the first one in my company. Like I live in New York and my boss's boss looked very poorly down on me using paternal family leave. So New York came out with PFL, paid family leave. Yep. And I was the first one. Like maternity leave is more like socially accepted, more universally done. And we don't need to get into the politics of the United States not having the leave policies of some other countries and things of that nature.
Europe,
but yeah. Each of my 2 children, my wife took an entire year off, unpaid. So that was us coasting. That was us like foot off the gas some. That was us family first before net worth and all that stuff. She took a year off for both. I took 6 weeks off for the first because that's what New York was allowing, I believe. And then I took 8 off, I think, for my daughter. I think I took 6 then 8. My boss's boss did not like that. That did not bode well for my and honestly, that is one of the slight things that like that is not the straw that broke the camel's back. That was some of the straw on the camel's back. Right. On top of Pokemon going nuts, on top of other things like Pokemon 10xing, 20xing was the straw that broke the camel's back, but that was some of the straw on the back.
Yeah, you already pissed me off, and then now Pokemon's 10x. Yeah. See ya.
Yeah.
I'm going to be with my kids. Let's see. We got a couple of things here we'll catch up on. Nothing gets under Dan's skin.
I'm a robot. There is no skin. This is a metallic exterior that is just done very well to make it look like human.
Tell Dan PSA is currently grading harder and you can understand.
People always need a boogeyman, right?
PSA grading right? Harder is something
what's holding them back. Yeah. There's always something.
There we go, buddy. Yeah. All seriousness, family first, man. Good for you, buddy. Yeah. Live it up, man. I'm working on that myself. And my wife and I, one of our first goals with this is so she can actually be with the kids. She's missing a lot of the years. She's working really hard. And we want to make sure that she can be home and spend that quality time with them before they get older. So that's one of the first goals we have.
Big ongoing joke on my channel is that my wife is like my sugar mama because like we live quite cheaply and she's a teacher. Like she does not make she does not make a 6-figure salary, nowhere near it, but we live quite frugally. We live quite cheap. And her salary pays the bills. One thing I love love my wife, love that she's doing something that she loves and all that. I love being married to a teacher, though. I love that she has such a flexible schedule and that it conforms perfectly to our kids. Like, I love that she will always be off the same times they're off. I love that I'm my own boss and I can go to the movies. I can go mini golfing. I can go to the zoo. Once they're older, we can take road trips. We can take longer vacations at will over the summer on weekdays when theme parks aren't as packed. When like we went to Legoland. We went to Legoland on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday. I forget. And it was so much better not having the weekend crowd, not having like the flexibility of so many things in life. And yeah, it's I really like the setup that we have going. And obviously the past few years were kind of weird with them being so young, with the pandemic and all that. But the next several years, like once mine get to your kids' age, once they get a little bit older, even, you can do a lot more with them, right? My kids are still like kind of a hassle driving in the car too long and all that.
I gotta go bathroom. I'm hungry. I'll be there yet.
I'm very, especially if I'm able to get to that FI number 4 or 5 years from now, and my kids are like 8 and 10. And we can do, like, I'm really looking forward to some big, long family trips, spring break week and summer vacation, and really taking the foot off the gas, really taking it off the gas.
And I'll tell you from experience, don't take, and I think you already said it, I think you got the point, but don't take your kids on an expensive vacation when they're 3, because they have no care for it. They won't remember it.
Legoland was expensive. They had a blast. They did have a blast. My wife is really pushing. My wife is really pushing for Disneyland soon, because like I'm gonna go to Orlando Collecticon probably every year. We actually did Animal Kingdom last year. My wife and I. My parents watched the kids while we were gone. But I'm trying to hold out, because Disneyland is crazy. Disneyland is going to be like
I haven't been.
It's going to be $5,000 or $6,000 to take the family there for a few days. I'm trying to hold out until they're like 8 and 10. When I was growing up, I went when I was 8 and when I was 13. I remember them both, but a lot of things meld together. But if I had went when I was 4, it would have cost my parents just as much, and they would have gotten less value because I wouldn't even remember it. Like I do remember both times I went at 8 and 13. 13, I was a little old. But 8, I was good age for that. Good age.
Okay, class. I'll be your substitute today. Mrs. Ketchum can't make it because a new MetaZoo dropped.
She does help me rip packs. She is the VP of KetchumAllCollectibles Incorporated.
All right. Question, Dan. What's the best way to tell your wife that you're quitting your job and going to full-time Pokemon?
When all the things that happened in 2020, I think she had a feeling it was coming around the same times that I did. And obviously we're married. We talk, and it was not like a surprise. It was not like catching her off guard. And she saw me starting the Instagram, then starting the YouTube. And like, there were a lot of conversations that went on leading up to that. A lot of conversations with my wife, a lot of conversations with my close family and friends. And so, yeah, it was not at all. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, it was not at all like, oh, hey, here's this big news I'm going to hit you with. It was a combined joint decision. Yeah.
Dan just sitting back, smoking meats and watching his patchy alone.
I have people coming out next week. People are so funny. I posted a picture of my smoking some meats in my Discord, and you could see the reflection of some grass. It's really patchy. It's actually a driveway. It's a gravel driveway that's that grown in with grass. I'm getting it quoted 5,000 square feet driveway. I'm getting quoted to do blacktop. I'm a little nervous for how the quote's going to come in. That's going to be expensive.
We just had to do ours, and all I'm going to say is it was not cheap, man. We had to replace the whole thing because the water line bust underneath it.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's just gravel now, but it's like I've calculated it roughly. It's about 5,000 square feet. That's going to, I mean, I know people who've gotten quotes recently around me to redo their driveway, and it's going to be like mid-20s, I think. Mid-20s easily.
Now, Pokey Kid, you got it all wrong, man. You don't sell the cards to the kids. Me and Alex already covered this. You give it away, right? The first one's free.
The funny thing is
sell.
I do. She has like a little prize bucket at school. I give all the empty lunchbox tins. I give all the like pencils. The going back to school tins they had. I sent all those, the pencil cases, the erasers. So yeah, my wife gives them a bunch of free Pokemon stuff as like prizes. They can pick it out of the prize bucket, and ensuring the future generation is into Pokemon and buying stuff.
Exactly.
I'm investing in our combined future as a Pokemon hobby.
Right. We got to keep the business alive. We got to keep the business alive, especially, if Alex goes full time. So we got to make sure.
Yeah, you gotta get those kids into it. Buy those Pokemon, the booster packs. Give them out at Halloween. Give them to your local LGS. Give them some bulk to donate to kids, and you got to do all that stuff.
I actually just offered the same thing to the kids' school. We went and talked to them, did a little bit of an open house, and teachers like, Pokemon's crazy at this school. I said, well, you're talking to the right man.
Yeah.
Let me know if you need some cards for incentive, and I'm happy to donate anything you need.
For sure.
I got you covered.
Yeah, it's good for all of us.
That's right. Kids under 2 get it free. Oh Lord, I gotta catch up here. All right, let me see. We got anything else here in the chat you want to pull up before I go to the next point?
I haven't been fully keeping up with chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm trying.
We're up to 37 watching. One more shout out. Awesome. We got only 18 likes on 37 watching. Hit that like button, folks. Come on, we got to get it up
guys.
there.
Dan doesn't water his lawn and wonders why it's not green.
Yeah, I do not water. I'm on a well. My well probably has the water sufficient. Like, I'm not in Arizona. I'm not gonna be like making it so people can't. The concept of watering a lawn, though, it's like, man, mine grows so crazy as is. I mow it every 3rd or 4th day. I don't need to water it where I live. It's crazy already.
I try not to. I just waste water. I mean, the water bill comes in. So it looks like we got some new podcasts already getting started. All right. So Pungan's going to be on Nostalgianomics soon. After vacation, of course. After he gets off the beach, dreaming about Pokemon. Rusty's house, backpacks, uncut sheets, Stan's house, MetaZoo packs, and Walmart meats.
Catchy, it even rhymes.
I like it. That's good stuff, man.
Hey, I'm doing more and more Costco meets now. More and more Costco meets. It's just tougher. It's a 15-minute drive instead of a 45-minute hour drive. Probably closer to an hour for Costco. It's tough.
So he's going bulk meats now. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Bulk meats. Yeah, with drug dealer mentality. Get them hooked up. We need a 3rd generation.
Got to secure our future.
That's right. Going back a little bit to one of the things I saw, when you first started, at least the first videos I saw on your live, I think it was 2 or 3 years old. And you were quite rude in your responses to some of your customers asking for certain things. And you realized quite quickly that was not going to work out well for you. And so you started to do the undesirable, but yet mandatory, polite, oh, thank you so much for your order. Fast forward now 3 years later, how much is communication skills important to you? And do you really still focus on it, or you're back to the I don't care, Dan?
I'm still kind of bad with people when they ask bad questions. Like 95% of customers you don't hear from whatsoever. The more messages they send, the more likely you are to have an issue. The more messages they send, the less likely you are to have a sale at all. So I have a quick block. I have a very lengthy block list that I'm not afraid to use. I should be better. I should be more professional. I think overall, I'm better than I was a couple years ago, but I still can be bad from time to time. It might be unrelated, but maybe it's correlated. If I've had a couple adult beverages and I'm getting late night eBay messages that are like off the wall, I might like have a little back and forth, have a little bit of toying around with them. I'm bad about that sometimes.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it as well. I mean, if you respond too poorly, they'll just give you some bad feedback, and things can go bad pretty quickly. So it takes a little bit of extra time, but sometimes it's worth it, but not too much. Not too much, because I think it gets you quite off the rails. Dan's favorite pastime. Oh, Lord, you guys are trolling. Dan's favorite pastime is being short with you when you're trying to make money.
For being a spreadsheet and a data guy, I don't have the actual data,
shit.
but like anecdotally, the more messages they send, the more pictures they request, the more stuff they do on the front end, your likelihood of getting a negative or a return goes way up. Your likelihood of having a sale goes down with each message that comes through. Like I've just seen that over the years. I've had the conversation with Nick. I've had the conversation with like several people who've sold a ton of stuff. The more you hear from them, the worse off you're going to be. 95 to 98, 99% of my sales, I don't hear from them once. I print my label, I ship it, I pack it, it's done. And though I don't even care if I get positive feedback. If I could have a 50 feedback account and half of them were negative, I'd rather have that. I'd rather have only hear from like I genuinely don't care if you leave me feedback or not. I want to just pack it and ship it, and then we both go our separate ways and live our lives. We don't need to talk. Let's just you buy like
keep this as transactional as possible.
Every time you walk into a Walmart, the Waltons don't need to know that you just bought like some steaks from their meat case in the Walmart closest to you. They just want to have a lot of people buy a lot of stuff and never hear from them whatsoever.
Right. Returns or no questions asked and get out. That's it. Here's your money back. So Mr. Wallace is blocked from Dan's eBay because he wanted Gem Mint, well-centered, single. Customer service is lacking, bud.
Yeah. It is. I intentionally put in my description on all my raw cards, I say that like I grade cards, these are not 10s, these are not 9s, these are not high graded cards. I harshly undersell all my raw cards. And then the graded cards, like the more they ask for, they circle something. Is this, is this, that? Can you check for print lines? I grade it so I don't have to do this stuff. By the questions that you've asked, I cannot please you. I cannot. This is not going to be a happy.
It already says PSA 10 on the front.
let's go our separate ways. I cannot give you what you're asking for. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I bump on mine down one. Yeah, if I think it's a near mid, I'll go down to light plate, and that way I just don't get questions.
Yeah,
So Nostalgic ordered PSA 10 from Dan. He can send a carnival prize. What's up with that, Dan? False advertising.
He keeps saying it's a consolation prize. It's a participation trophy. He really he had a big reaction when I said that PSA 10s on certain cards, not all PSA 10s, but certain PSA 10s are just participation trophies. I mean, when a 10 rate is 95%, what does it even mean? I mean, sure, there's some amount of pre-grading going on. There's some amount of selection bias in what's being sent. But when you have a 95% 10 rate, that's just a participation trophy. I mean, why is there much of a premium there?
But you're happy there is, right? Of course.
Yeah.
There we go. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Other questions you've asked, I cannot please you. That's the dark implication.
I'm not too proud to admit that I know that I cannot fulfill their desires. Without context of what that's being talked about. But when someone asks all those questions, I know that they're not going to be happy. So it's like, just go to, maybe someone else can give you what you need, but I can't. I'm sorry.
I'm not your guy.
Yeah, that's not me. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Buy or buy. B-U-Y or B-Y-E. That's it. That's my motto.
I love it. Let's go our separate ways. Speaking of separate ways, tell me a little bit about some of your biggest losses and gains. I've asked the same question to Alex in the last chat. What has been like your peak moment? Like one of the things you said, geez, if I could do that again, those gains were just amazing. What's been one of those memories for you?
The best single thing I ever did was like just very, very fortunate timing. When I finished most of my Collected Boy Dan goals was right around 2019 Worlds. I had completed opening all the boxes I wanted to open. I had completed my WotC set. I had completed everything. The next thing I set my sights on was a complete trophy set of 1 to 4 full art Pikachus. I made a very substantial amount of money. I have one left, but all said and done, I had bought 6 total. So I sold 5. I sold 5 of those that I'd ever bought. And the gains that I made on those were, I made the single gain I made on the number 1 was more than I had ever made as an annual salary as a chemical engineer. Like the amount of money, and it was It was just fortunate timing where I was in my journey when I decided to start buying those. And then that was right before the boom. And the crazy thing is the multipliers on those were significantly lower than the multipliers on a lot of the worst stuff. Like I had $100 EVs turning into $1,000 EVs. My $20,000 trophy, my 10, I guess it's close. My 15 for the number one, I paid like between 10 and 20, closer to 10, but somewhere in there. It's kind of hard to separate out because I bought the number one with the champion stamp all the way on down. But that only, I mean, that did not 10x, that did not 20x like some things did. That might have only 5 to 10x instead. So even though the multipliers weren't as high, the raw dollar amounts were just absurd.
Right.
I mean, some of those cards did, like a Mysterious Pearl. I publicly showed the number on my eBay, on my YouTube. I bought it for like 1,900 and I sold it for 16,000. Not quite a 10x, but in raw dollar terms, like that's like months of salary. Yeah, like crazy.
That's good stuff. And what's your worst one? If that was one of your best ones, what's your worst one?
Worst one, I guess the worst thing was just not literally selling my whole PWCC account at the exact opportune time. Like I did not sell it
during the pandemic.
Peak 2021. I should have literally just sent them all to auction and just taken all that money in. In hindsight's 2020 though. But as far as people are gonna meme on me hard. People are gonna meme on me real hard. I bought some very silly MetaZoo stuff before I got into it as like a partner. I bought some sample cards. Shortly after I sold all those trophy cards to Rusty, I think was the timing of it. I spent some money back with him on like sealed sample packs of MetaZoo cards, 1 of 100 MetaZoo cards, not serialized, but like 1 of 100. And those have done quite poorly. Overall, MetaZoo as a whole, I'm definitely up because I bought a few Kickstarter boxes really low. And they went up a bunch. I sold some high. I still have 1 left, but that's probably the worst, like percentage wise. Those sample packs and then a couple other MetaZoo purchases, I probably lost over 50% for sure.
Are you actually in other ones as well? And I think I've heard you talk about a little bit of Lorcana, a few other things. Are you venturing out?
I'm not intending to touch Lorcana. Pretty much just MetaZoo. I bought that one massive collection. Aside from Pokemon, like, I mean, Pokemon is most of what I do. That collection I bought a little under a year ago now. Massive. I bought a $50,000 collection, 48,000, I think it was. It was non-Pokemon and Pokemon. It was Dragon Ball Z. It was Naruto. It was Yu-Gi-Oh. It was Weiss. It was everything.
Nice.
The returns on that are crazy. I have a lot of cards out on consignment still with some people in the chat. But yeah, that is probably my best one of my best individual collection buys. I mean, I've definitely benefited heavily from just timing on a lot of stuff. Like I'm fortunate to have been born at the time I was born so that it boomed when I was like the target demographic. And then I re-entered the hobby in 2014 when there was just a straight tailwind for 6 years. And then there was a 6-year tailwind behind me and then a rocket to the moon.
The stars aligned for you, Dan.
Yeah, just fortunate timing. I mean, fortunate timing by my age, by when I was born. Fortunate timing that I found my binder when I did, when I moved out of my parents' house, moved into my next house, all that stuff.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I did a binder buyout from somebody's actual childhood collection. I kind of alluded to it, but I didn't speak to the numbers. And it was only $5,000, something roughly like that, but it was 700% return. And I'm still racking on it. So I'm still gaining. It's just all bank at this point. So some of those really good collection buyouts, or especially if there's somebody's actual childhood binder and they actually store those and sleeve them properly, man, you can get some gems. This one was all Pokemon, but it was good. It was good. My best flip. Here we go. Tough to know. I just have to made so much. I get sad and then think about it. My trophies are 5 and 10x instead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to say I tell people about my losses. I had a loss last year, not big though. Like when I did my slab optimization very publicly last year, I cracked like 200 or 300 slabs and I regraded them all with PSA. Some went up, and overall, I definitely lost a few $1,000s. Like, it's a lot of money still, but in the context of everything that's going on, and in the context of some of the other things I was doing at the time, like, it's my wins are definitely a lot bigger than my losses ever have been. But my losses are still there. Like, I'm not one who just claims I've never lost and I don't have any. Like, I definitely do. There's definitely things that I'm holding. There's things I'm holding today that I was holding in 2020, 2021 that are down 80%. They're still up 2 or 3x from when I bought them in 2016. But like, yeah, clearly in hindsight, I should have sold them when they were 5 times higher than they are today.
Just keep holding. I mean, investing.
If I had perfectly timed a couple Bitcoin trades, I could be a billionaire, but I didn't do that either. I mean, you can't get hung up on it. You can't get hung up on it.
Agreed. One of the things, if you've already said it, forgive me for asking, but you mentioned it in a few places, especially even back in the old videos. You switched from a LLC to an S Corp. Care to share why?
I actually, I went from a sole proprietorship straight to an S Corp. And I always say consult with professionals. Like, I didn't even know until like 6 months to a year after I was an S Corp. Technically, I created an LLC and then did an S election to become an S Corp. So I didn't realize you couldn't just become an S Corp. I told my attorney, I told my my accountant, my accountant told me to become an S Corp for tax reasons. And he gave me an attorney to do all the paperwork. And I just signed where I needed to sign. I skimmed through some things, but I guess you need to be an LLC first to do an S election to become an S Corp. So I was a sole proprietor for 6 years, 6 or 7 years. For a day, I was an LLC, and then I did my S election immediately. So I've been an S Corp for the past 2 years now or so. But it's primarily just per the advice of my accountant. I don't know how deep you want me to get into the weeds of why it or how it works, but it's just tax.
Go for it.
It's very, very tax advantaged.
But that puts the liability back on you, though, right?
There's almost no liability in this. So I'm an LLC that's elected to become an S corporation. So as far as legal wise, my dad is a mechanic, welder, fabricator, that type of stuff. He works on people's cars. And if he screws up someone's brakes and they crash and get injured, he has a lot of liability. He's an LLC because he actually has what liability do we have? Is someone going to get a paper cut from a Pokemon card?
I think Mr. Walrus and Alex are going to come after you.
Yeah. From my financial advice, or
if you don't hire Pongo soon, she's going to show up. He or she's going to show up at your door.
There's very, very little liability to be had. I think a lot of people rush straight to LLCs. And again, if your accountant advises you to, if some professional that you are consulting with advises you to, I would go ahead with it. But personally, I think a lot of people rush to LLC with little to no benefit to them and a lot of cost to them. The reason I went S Corp is because instead of making everything I make directly as an individual, sole proprietorship as salary, I now pay myself a salary and I take the rest of the profits as a distribution. Distribution isn't subject to payroll taxes, substantial tax savings. Doing the same things, it's all legit. There's no it's some people might call it a loophole, but it's just what it is. I'm literally doing the same work the same way. It's just being accounted for differently on paper, and I'm saving 5 figures a year in taxes, legitimately.
Perfect. Yeah, I was curious. Why you went that route. I've heard some different stories, but that's good explanation. Appreciate it. Yeah,
and again, if I were you out there listening, don't just blindly go do an S Corp because Dan did. Don't go blindly do an LLC because you watched a TikTok video that said you should do one. Consult with a professional local to you, and I would heed their advice. I consult with a couple.
I've said it in the stream earlier today, Dan. The internet doesn't lie, man. If they said it on TikTok, it's got to be true. It's got to be true. Dan, you're the idol for Pongo. Financial advisor, accountant, but you still need somebody? What's up, man?
You always have to have one of the best ROI. Actually, I should have said that. One of the best ROIs, one of my biggest wins in the hobby is the couple $1,000s I've paid thus far to my I guess it's a few grand by now between my accountant and my attorney who did my my S election and all that. That money
Do
has
you,
returned many multiples, and it will pay dividends every single year from here
Exactly.
into perpetuity.
Exactly. Do you do you file quarterly?
They do everything. Like
You don't
quarterly,
know.
quarterly, my accountant will email me and they'll say like, "Hey,
Okay.
you're gonna see this withdrawal. It's gonna be New York State, whatever, blah blah blah, and it's gonna be federal, whatever, blah blah blah." So I'm doing something quarterly. What exactly it is, like I vaguely know, but like not too much. Yeah. Come find me at Collecticon at 3 a.m. after 6 or 12 or 15 IPAs. That's when the real deeper than the paywall, way deeper than the paywall, even a late night at a Collecticon.
I'll see you there in Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's
where the real plays get spilled.
No, that's right. Talk to me a little bit about you paying yourself. I mean, you mentioned it there with the S corp. I mean, not so much in the details or the amounts, but how do you decide what to pay yourself? Often when people own their own business and they're getting started, they say, well, everything should go back into the business. Everything's reinvest. Some say, pay yourself first. What's your approach and how do you make that decision?
Yeah. So legally speaking, being an S corporation, you have to pay yourself what is deemed a reasonable salary.
Right.
I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but I had a consultation with my accountant. I told them what I do, how many hours a week approximately I do it, and we came up with what we deemed a reasonable salary. So I pay myself that. My wife is actually the vice president of the company, so she's actually on payroll as well. My kids will eventually be on payroll. There's a lot of tax benefits. They need to materially participate in the business. So all that stuff's
Card sorting,
all above board. Yep. I mean, it's easy. I'm not a mechanic. Like I'm not trying to claim my kids are dropping an engine and replacing like head gaskets and stuff. My kids can sort cards. My kids can open packs, things like that.
They can turn wrenches too, man. They can change tires. Nothing wrong with that.
I grew up with that. Like I actually was like I was the flashlight guy. Go get the wrench. Go get the 3/4 socket. Go get the 5/8. Go get this and that. Remind me exactly what the question was. I just lost. I just lost exactly what the question was. I swear these are just Arnold Palmers. These are not alcoholic. This is just iced tea and lemonade.
What you poured in it before you came on the stream is what we really want to know. It's a moonshine. Yeah. No, it was about how do you pay yourself? How do you decide what to pay? Yeah.
So for the first several years, I didn't. For the first several years, I was the side hustle. It wasn't even like reinvest into the business. It was reinvest into my collection. It was I funded it. I seeded my account. Like I opened an account. I've always made the meme, but it's not actually a meme. It's just true. Inventory is more efficient than collection. So from the start, I was doing it as like a business. I had inventory. I had a separate account, all that stuff. But I never took money out. I never paid myself from it because I didn't need money from it. Like, why take money out of it when I'm having fun? I'm having a good time. I'm growing my collection. So,
and you were still working at that time.
Yeah,
you were still had your full-time job.
Dual income household, no kids, all that stuff for those years. So there was no need whatsoever to take money out.
Yeah.
So take out what you need if and when you need it. But like if you are growing everything and everything's going good and you're happy risk tolerance wise with your whole financial picture, like don't take it out if you don't need to, especially because it is tax inefficient. When I paid off my house, very, very tax inefficient. I paid a lot of taxes that year. If I had just kept rolling things in and keeping the money flowing and there's definitely things to be said for leveraging and not taking money out and putting it all back towards growth. And you can grow a lot bigger on the upside, but like on the downswing, if and when things go bad, you can also get bit too. So that's part of the reason why I paid off my house and all that, like hedging risk and pulling some money out. But now I literally just pay myself what I legally have to. I pay myself a reasonable salary. I stuff that all into tax advantage accounts. And then all the other money for now, if and when things feel so bubbly, so crazy that I think it's worthwhile selling everything or selling a lot more, taking the tax hit and putting it into brokerage accounts, I've not gotten that far. But yeah, as of right now, it's literally just like stuffing all my tax advantage accounts through my salary, and everything else stays in. But that's a lot of money. That's a constant draw coming out every month. The IRAs, the solo 401ks, all being filled to the brim.
That's the way to go when you talk about some of the traditional investments for sure. You know, Retro says he used to be proud to show you his 90 days. Now you just smack him down when you don't say wow anymore. You just show him yours.
No, Retro is killing it. Like there are so many people. There are so many people out there. Some just side hustling. Shout out to like Ray. I vended next to him. Yeah. Shining Cards and Collectibles, he's going by now. But I vended next to him in Orlando, and for him just being a side hustler, doing this on the side as like a hobby, whatever you want to call it, man is absolutely killing it. And he's just one. He's one of many. Like there are I'm full time. I've been here for several years. My numbers are big, like a lot of just built up over time. And there's a lot of people new to the space, only side hustling in the space. Last couple of years, they are putting up numbers. Like, man, there's a lot of impressive stuff going on in the hobby.
Wasn't Ray the one that brought the massive binders and he just killed it with binders? Wasn't that the same guy? He's
done really well with binders at a lot of the collecticons, selling them as he goes and getting bought out of them by the end. And he had some like Japanese stuff going on. He's got some pretty solid stuff.
Cool. Maybe he'll be at this one. I think I saw a couple of videos from him too.
I I see Walrus in chat. Walrus, very impressive as well. Every name I see here in chat, I'm not going to call them all out individually, but you guys are all killing it. I'm proud of you all. Dan
share what he thinks is reasonable for what he does. I threw up. I'll be on payroll soon, right?
Maybe James. James is the I'm the fisherman. James is the banker. He's hiring left and right. Hit up ZNG Emporium.
S corp is the only way, unless you're smaller business. Financial advice.
And talk to somebody. Like it would not make sense if you're making below X amount of dollars. Like there's a lot of upkeep. It cost me. I think I paid almost $1,000. I think I paid $800, $900 to become an S corp. There's a lot of like upkeep to it, like an LLC, but even more. Yeah. You have to do annual things,
meetings, and it's as much like a nonprofit in that way.
So like, don't just dive into an S corp if it's not going to be advantageous for you. It's you talk to somebody, they'll tell you the salary thresholds, they'll tell you the income thresholds that make sense, and someday, maybe 5-10 years from now, I'll have to dissolve the corporation. Maybe it won't make any more financial sense to do it if and when I take my foot off the gas enough. But as of right now, like it makes sense. So that's what I'm doing.
I think you hurt his feelings, Dan.
I'm very impressed by you, Mr. Walrus. in all ways.
There we go. There you go. It's been stroked. Stroking is done. Don't clip that.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, Dan, a little bit about how your thoughts are. One of the things that you see always flying around, good and bad advice, is how you use somebody else's money. When you talk about some of the big players, whether it's former presidents or otherwise, they don't use their own money for a lot of their investments. What's your perspective? Obviously, taking interest off the table, and that's going to be one of the first barriers to say, well, if you're paying interest, then it probably doesn't make that much sense, because we're never talking about small numbers of interest anymore. But think about using somebody else's money for your investment so that you can keep yours and then leverage that, especially at zero interest. What's your perspective on other people's money versus your money?
I've always been somebody for like how logical and rational and like mathematically optimizing things. And I'm doing this consciously. I'm going to elaborate more on my own channel in some like very in-depth financial videos, but I hate
that's going to be your financial podcast that you're going to start?
Potentially. Who knows? Maybe someday. To a fault, I hate debt. I do not like banks, and I hate debt. I hate using other, not to like Dave Ramsey levels. I'm not like, don't have a credit card, they're the devil, blah, blah, like not to that level. But I paid off my house early, knowing that historically speaking, I had a 15-year mortgage at 3%, and I paid it off early. I paid off a 6-figure sum to pay off my thing early, all metrics, all historical numbers, everything pointed towards putting that in the markets, putting that investing 7 to 10% returns,
Right.
historically speaking, way over what a 3% guaranteed return paying down debt would be. I knew that was mathematically inferior to investing the money instead of accelerating the pay down of my debt. But I hate banks. I hate dealing with them. Every process of moving money. I actually actively, as we're talking, my employer 401k from where I used to work, I just was lazy and I haven't moved it since. There's a physical check on its way to me that is my entire balance of my original employer 401k. I have to physically take a check in my hand and I have to physically put it in an envelope with a form that I hand write and sign, and I send it to Vanguard. My money will be out of the market. 6-figure sum will be out of the market for 2 to 4 weeks while they transfer my money from one 401k to my solo 401k. When I send money around the world, like I've done some pretty decent deals. I've done some crypto deals because crypto just moves so much quicker. And this is not like a crypto shill. I'm not saying invest in any of that stuff. I've played in it, but it's very risky, very dangerous. But one thing I love about it, you transact it and it's instant. When I try to send a wire, when I try to send an ACH, the banks have to be open. It takes hours. It takes days. It's so dumb. Like I hate everything about how banks work and all that stuff. So I don't like owing them money. I paid off car loans early. I paid off student loans early, even debts that were so low percentages that everything would point towards mathematically invest the difference, pay it down as slow as possible. I just don't like leverage. I don't like debt. So that's my take on not using other people's money. If I were ever to become a financial advisor, if I were to ever like just have a cold mathematical discussion with somebody, like if one of my close family or friends ever asked me like, hey, what would you do in this situation? I would tell them, I'm dumb and illogical and irrational. I paid off my house early. I would suggest someone following logic, following reason, following rationale would actually hold that debt and instead invest the difference. So like, I know what I did with suboptimal,
Right.
but that's just the way I am with that. Like that's the
You want
one
that freedom.
thing that I'm like, especially at the time that I paid off my house early, that was when the first rumblings were starting in my mind that like, I might do this full time someday. And the only way I was going to ever allow myself to quit my job and leave that security was having no debt to anyone whatsoever. And I talked about it before. Like, and this is not my term. This is a term that I've heard in some finance thing that I read before or whatever. Giving myself a lot of runway. A lot of businesses fail because they have so little capital. They have so little runway. Like, I don't know about you guys, but where I live, there are certain businesses that are just like the building is cursed. There'll be a pizzeria for 6 months and then it'll go out under. And then it'll be an Italian place. And then it'll be a pizzeria again. There are like in our local mall, like malls are half dead anyways, but there are just a lot of these businesses fail because people don't give themselves runway. They start a business, they need to pay like their cost of living. They need to extract $5,000 a month every month to pay their bills from a business that's not yet started. I set up my business in a way that I did not have to take a penny from it. Like legally, I have to pay myself a salary because of the whole S-corp thing. But other than that, like I don't have to take a penny from it to pay my bills or anything. I set myself up with X months, X years worth of like runway by design. Cause like, that's just how anti-risk I am, anti-leverage, anti-using other people's money.
So there you go, Ponga. The numbers lie. That's it. They lie. But no, I mean, that's a good answer. I mean, it definitely gave you the freedom, gave you the, the ability to say, I've quit my job. All I have to worry about is the monthly operating expenses. So yeah, using your paywall to fund all your investments. Smart move, Dan. Smart move.
And it's like, it's actually provably not a very smart move. And hindsight has since confirmed it. Like had I still had that 6-figure sum that I used to pay off my house early, I could literally have it in CDs right now. I could be paying 3% interest to the bank on my on my mortgage, and I could be earning 4 to 5% on treasuries and CDs, guaranteed returns. I could be netting $1,000, a couple, $1,500, like over $100-200 a month. I could be netting, literally just arbitraging my 3% mortgage with a 5% T-bill.
Well, I mean, the high yield savings accounts are now 4.5%. I mean, 3.5%.
And obviously, at the time that I made that decision, had I known that was where it was going to go, with hindsight, all can be solved and optimized, right? Like, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I still knew that, historically speaking, 150-year history, I knew that like other things were best for that money than paying off a 3% mortgage. But I still did it because like that's like the most illogical thing I have about money is my debt aversion, I would say.
Okay. This one, I don't know, Dan. You're going to have to fill me in. I don't know what you did in Charlotte on Thursday.
Can Dan address the debacle he created in Charlotte? Oh, I'm actually I'm assuming he's talking about the room situation. I'm going Thursday night, actually. I think a lot of people thought I was going to go Friday night or Friday day, but I'm going Thursday night, and I usually room with Nick because it's like, why not? I mean, why not go for half the lodging cost? We hang out the whole time anyways. We might as well just room, and we can
share the room.
Little bit of cuddling, and get to know each other a little better. But
nothing like a warm spoon at night.
I think before I committed to like going Thursday night, I think there was conversation that like Walrus may stay the night with Nick and get his intimate alone time with Nick, but now I've intruded on that, so I think Walrus is mad at me.
Okay, that wasn't an incident; it was a pleasure. Oh, that was actually for a Wiglet. You guys are crazy. Let's see. Anything? Beers on me. Ponga says beers on me. Thursday night Omnibar.
There we go. Beers on me too. Right. Lot of beers. I'm going to be buying a lot of beers. Pokemon's been nice to me.
I think we'll all be there. I think it sounds like everybody's going to be there on Charlotte. It's only 15 minutes for me, so I'll just drive up. It's pretty awesome. Close.
Yeah,
I love it. All right, so we'll move into some of the last points. You're not coming, Brew City? You should come. It's gonna be fun. Now maybe switching over to a little bit of the personal side, Dan. So tell me, how has children changed your life, man? How has it changed your perspective on business? The very first video I watched from you, you mentioned, your girls, or actually your son at the time, was interested in Pokemon. You guys were opening some packs together. Going through the same experience myself with my kids. That's actually one of the reasons I'm even into it in the first place, and love it. I absolutely love it. So how does that change your perspective in terms of, obviously you touched on wanting to spend more time with your kids, it being a priority, but running this business, knowing you have 2 kids now, they're probably going to be involved in Pokemon. How does that all play a role for you, and how do you see that change in your perspective as you move forward?
Yeah, it's a huge part. It's a huge part that another one of that the bits of straw on the camel's back, like just having the freedom, having the ability to work from home. And when I was growing up, actually, my mom and dad were both self-employed. My mom was like a stay-at-home mom / babysitter. I actually had I lived in the woods. The closest house either direction from me was like half mile away. But a lot of kids would get off the bus at my house because they would get picked up later on by their parents. My mom was like a daycare.
The neighborhood mom, yeah.
Which was nice. So being able to be self-employed like my parents were when I was growing up, I very thankful to come from like a married household, not separated parents, not divorced, like a very happy, healthy household with both parents very, very present. I grew up handling the wrench, like helping my dad do brake jobs, do changing tires, and learning welding when I was like 7 or 8 years old and all that stuff. And having the idea that I can like do that stuff with my kids in the like very, very excited to just be present, be around. I do the periodic, but that's a big reason why it'll only ever be 2 or 3, maybe 4, especially if and when my kids can be integrated. Traveling. Like I had some friends growing up that like their dad was like the traveling businessman. They'd only see their one of their parents or maybe both of their parents. They'd only see a few hours a week. I got to see mine all day, every day, except for when I was at school. And I love that I'll be able to like have that with my kids as well, the same way I had it with my parents. And I'm actually, I mean, kids can change so much, days, weeks, months. My son wants to learn how to play the Pokemon TCG this winter. I think it'll be a little bit tough because like it'll be tough, but we'll try. Right now we battle by like who has the bigger number, who has the bigger attack, the same way I used to battle when I was younger. But I'm excited. And honestly, if my son like goes all in on playing the TCG in the coming years, I might like pivot my business to just support that more. I might get more into playability. I might start playing myself. Right. Maybe we'll be going to Worlds together. Maybe we'll both be trying to grind our Worlds invites. Maybe I'll ditch Collecticons for regionals. Who knows? Like, right. Who knows what the future is going to hold?
They're fun. They're fun.
I love that I have the flexibility, and I love that I have, pending things continuing to go well, that I might be able to take my foot off the gas so far that I can just really like, if they want to get super into sports, I can maybe be the coach of some of their teams. If they want to get super into Pokemon, I can pivot my business and we can go to regionals and we can go to Worlds and we can like, I'm excited for what's to come with all that. And
I love it.
I'm way more flexible in what I'm doing now as a career than what I used to be doing.
Well, I'll say this: prepare yourself. If you start playing TCG with your son or your daughter and they get really good, you just get beat a lot. And my son beat me twice today. He said, "Dad, let's go play downstairs." We went downstairs after or before lunch. We played 2 games. He just wiped the floor with me. I said, "Okay, that's it. I'm going to cook lunch."
My son does not seem like he's super athletic at this point, but he is crazy good. Like I taught him checkers a couple days ago. I had not played checkers in over a decade, but it's a very simple game. I was borderline like worried he was going to beat me in the first game that he knew how to play checkers. The kid actually, he's 5. He beats me at memory straight up. Like not every time, but he beat like games like Candyland, games like a lot of those games are just straight luck. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But he beats me straight up. Like I'm trying to win in memory and he beats me. Like I think he might be good. I think he might be good at some of this stuff. So I'm really looking forward to what he might get into. He wants to, he's saying if Ernesto listens to this, he's going to love it. My son wants to learn chess. I actually taught him the other day. I told him chess is a lot more complicated than checkers. I said, let's learn a couple pieces at a time. I taught him the rook and the bishop. And Ernesto's probably going to kill me because I'm probably going to teach him chess like completely the wrong way. But I'm starting to teach him how the pieces move. And in the coming weeks and months, like I want to play a couple games of chess with him. I want to play Pokemon with him. And and that's all same goes for my daughter too. She's just a couple years younger. So she's a couple years further away for all this stuff. We're more like alphabet and like simple numbers and things like that with her right now.
So they'll be mad at your kids can't mountain bike yet.
They actually are actively learning to like ride bikes and going, taking them to the taking them to the school. Part of me paving my driveway is so that they can have a place to ride their bikes. Right now, like gravel driveway, you can't really do it. And we do live on a dead end road. Like the road would be fine, but my wife is pretty nervous about the road. I mean, I grew up. I remember when I was younger, we'd go bikes out in the woods, backcountry roads with 55-mile-an-hour speed limits, blind hills, corners, and my parents just let us go like right around the town.
Yeah, but when we were young, it was very different. It was very different.
Yeah.
But we all know that you're actually building a vault under your driveway, Dan. That's really what it is.
Oh yeah, you got to conceal the vault even deeper, even better. Yeah, for sure.
It's a tax write-off, everybody. Tell me about though, how do you plan to do the balance? Or I think right now you're going to be forced perhaps to do the daytime babysitter, but do you really have strict time? I know working from home can be hard for many people. Walking away from the desk, saying, okay, hey, now it's dinner time or it's whatever, we're going to the park. Are you really strict with that? And you just kind of walk away and let all the orders wait until the next day?
I'm better than I used to be. I think I'm still not as good as I should be. In a perfect world, I would not make a single Discord post. I would not send a single eBay message between 4:30 and 8:30 every night. I have my phone set up for do not disturb mode. I definitely violate that more than I should. I should be better depending on what we're doing. Like sometimes I'm mowing the lawn in that period. So I'm doing things as I'm like, depending on what we're doing, the kids might be in the tub and I might be like browsing stuff. The kids might be wrapping up with dinner and I finish dinner early. So a little bit of, but I definitely ongoing conversation with my wife we've had periodically of I'm on my phone too much. Like, I will admit I'm addicted to my phone and I need to be better about setting it down. I think I'm a lot better than I used to be. I'm better than I could be, but I'm also worse than I could be too. So I need
Right.
to continue trying to improve on that. But like when we did Legoland, when we go to the zoo, like that's all time like immediately coming away from the work time. And I think I'm a lot better when we're like out somewhere doing something more. If we're just home, nothing really going on that night, I'm definitely a little bit worse with it. Just like opening up the
Right.
phone, zombie, just like
Right.
default to just browsing, seeing what's going on. It's tough.
Especially with some of the Discord chats, man. You get lost in that stuff. It's almost as bad as TikTok.
Sure. Yep.
What do we got here? We got little man's gonna be a Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Teaching him how to play checkers and chess at 5. Damn, Moses Long daily. He checks his pizza tracker.
It is every 3 to 4 days. I'm like when the weather's right for it. Like when you get, obviously if you get a long dry streak, it can be like towards a week, but when you get that right blend of sunny days and rainy days, man, it feels like every third day. It's crazy.
I wouldn't disagree with you, Mr. Walrus. I remember getting hit by my first car. They stopped, they got out, they cared about me. As I got older, they hit me and they just sped off and they didn't care. So I would definitely agree with you here. Kids are different these days. We can't let them just run the streets like we used to. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine day before yesterday, and we were talking more about corporate world and business, and a lot of it's week over week and quarter over quarter profit margins and maximizing those really at any cost. And then once you couple in stakeholders and commitments, it starts to get messy really quickly. And we kind of said a phrase to each other, and he said that actually, I don't know if it was Jordan Peterson or somebody else actually said it, and maybe some slightly different words, but I want to get your take on the phrase and where you see it as a business owner. So happiness found in profits lead to failure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people way over focus on more for the sake of more, and often that's
Right.
dollars. I think I have some like pretty decent videos in my backlog. I know that's maybe conceited of me, and that's cocky of me, but like I have some. I already like personal finance has always been a bit of a hobby, and I always talk about my fascination with people's relationship to money. And I think a lot of people have a terrible relationship with money. Some would say I have a bad relationship with money. I'm obsessed with getting this 25 times my annual spending, blah, 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 whatever. But I think money is just a tool, and using it the right way and not letting it like use you and abuse you is just such a huge part. And most people, just for the sake of more, keeping up with the Joneses, FOMO, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people just their whole life, like I'm not going to get too in deep personal whatever with certain people in my life, but there are certain people in my life that I just know they will work till they're dead, because they will never have enough money. They all they do is consume. I would call someone like that more obsessed with money, whose finances manage them and they don't manage their finances. Where I've been accused of being like too focused on money, too worried about it, having to save it all, hoard it, whatever. Like that's I think that quote kind of lends towards that. I think that quote, and a lot of people, again, I get memed on so hard for the whole fisherman thing. But I think if anyone's being serious, if anyone's being genuine, I think they can understand. Yeah, there we go. The obligatory Mexican fisherman.
Three, 2, 1.
I think it's fairly apparent that I'm actually like fairly related to that. It's fairly analogous to my situation. And I've had the like my dad is very similar. My again, not getting too in deep to things, but certain family members having certain health things going on, and my dad has massively taken his foot off the gas in recent years because of early planning and good good foundation being laid early on, hard work and a lot of dedication and a lot of frugality and a lot of like good financial management has led my dad to a point where he can enjoy his grandkids a lot more than a lot of grandparents can. And
Right.
he can take off a lot more time and he can take his foot off the gas of his own business to manage different health crises that go on amongst certain family members and things like that. And yeah, I really want to continue down that path for sure and not have my money manage my
Drive
life.
you. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Walrus. I don't know if that was me or Dan, but nobody was calling you out directly. Be careful, though. You might get banned by the almighty powers that Thomas unfortunately left us the other day, by the man.
I'm assuming he's talking about when I was talking about somebody with bad financial sense.
Okay.
It was not Mr. Walrus though, and it was
Okay.
not like even any one individual. It was definitely just a general trend I've seen and heard amongst some people in my life throughout the years. Different parts of my life, different people throughout.
No, I think, things like this, and I had family members that did the same thing. They just don't want to be sitting at home. So when they don't have something that makes them passionate, they don't have a purpose. They just want to go get a job. That's all they know. And so that's not necessarily a chase for the money. It's more of a chase to say, I want to have a purpose when I wake up in the morning outside of just getting dressed and eating. So
yeah, you never know someone's situation.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are 75-year-old cashiers out there that are working because they literally have no money saved up. They need to work till they die. But there are some amount there. I bet you there are millionaires that are 75-year-old cashiers because they enjoy. They're people. They love just interacting. You're a cashier. You're interacting with. I mean, at a busy place, you're interacting with what? 10, 20 different people every hour, just different new faces coming through. And I'm sure there are some people that just do it to be like a social aspect to their life.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly what Mr. Roller said here as well.
Yep.
I hate to turn the little old lady down when she says, "Can I take your buggy to the car?" Like, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll do that. I don't want you to have to carry my buggy.
Can I help you with your bags? Yeah. The bags weigh more than they do. It's like, I got this. I got this one.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Dan grew up on the family of Mexican fishermen living in upstate New York. Upstate New York. All right. Well, let's wrap this up with just a few more. I appreciate the time, Dan. Really do. Thanks everybody for joining, watching, hanging around. It's been almost actually 2 hours. So great time. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Tell me, is there any hunt left? Is there any thrill left for you? When I watch those early videos, and I do that always to kind of give me context of the journey you guys have been on, and you had a hunt, you had a thrill as you were, searching through eBay, finding that next collection, whatever that might be. Do you still have anything that drives you and excites you about Pokemon, or is it all just spreadsheets and numbers these days?
The consignment service is really cool. It's genuinely cool. Cards that I will never be able to justify owning, at least not anytime soon. Some of the cards that have passed through my consignment service are really, really cool to just handle and see. And I'm at a point where like I could own like a lot of the cards on my list that I never got to, that I turned into Business Dan and Collector Dan died. Victory Ring Pikachu and Master's Key and Wonder Platinum. And I could buy those, but it would just not be responsible of me, and it would be tying up a lot of capital. And one day, though, I hope to consign all those cards. I hope to handle them, have them pass through my possession. So there's still a lot of, and who knows, like I might still have the opportunity at some point or another to buy those. Likely the market would have to go down a fair bit for me to ever. So hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
To be honest.
Hopefully not.
I definitely have a mental barrier of sorts spending over like a certain number on one individual card. Like my biggest sales are definitely a lot bigger than my biggest buys ever were. I'll never make, well, unless things drastically change, maybe several years from now, decades from now, I'll likely never make a singular purchase as big as my biggest sale was. Probably never within never within 20 or 30% of it. It's just so hard to justify that much money on one piece of cardboard.
A single card, yeah.
But no, I mean, a lot of my goals a lot of my goals, like my biggest business financial, I mean, I would consider it even a Pokemon goal, is to just optimize my business to the point to where I get to that FI number, that 4% rule. Like that is my next immediate goal that is
So
on
that
Slate.
excites you.
That is so much higher than, and I don't like micromanage it. I don't watch it day by day. I think it's very, very dangerous. And there was a period in my life where I was looking at my 401k balance every day, every week, like I check in quarterly. I check in approximately quarterly. I'm like long game and all that traditional investments, and I don't get hung up on the day to day. Why'd the market go up 0.5%? Why'd it go down 2%? Up 2%? So yeah, like I have an eBay goal for sales number, what I want to hit. I have more like business oriented goals, thresholds that I want to hit, and I want to get to that 4% rule. There are cards that, like the right card at the right price, it could happen, but it's just a lot less likely. It's a lot less likely. So yeah.
But the consignments still get you excited. That's still really still excites you when you wake up in the day and say, hey.
I still enjoy the card. Like I still genuinely enjoy the cards, and it's cool
Apparently
seeing different things coming
you were shilling Pongo's cards, so that's perfect.
I have a Porygon. It's from Temple of Anger, a CGC 10 pristine Temple of Anger, first edition Porygon level X, I believe. So $200 on my eBay.
All right. You heard it, everybody.
Yeah.
It's the one on auction. No buy it now, unfortunately. Looks like, Dan, you're a habitual pot stirrer.
Brad G Cards is the biggest pot stirrer I've ever interacted with. Like, I love the interaction. I love that he's keeping the live chat lively. But man, he's a wicked pot stirrer.
Yeah. Talking about your block list, Dan. One of one. Bragging about the block list. All right, man. Last but not least, I usually end it off with two thoughts. One of them is, your specialty, and then looking at the new person coming in. I asked something similar for Alex from an investment standpoint, but now from your point of view, what would be your advice for that new person starting their Pokemon business and kind of looking to you and what you've done and the years of success you've had? What would be the advice you would give them?
Slow and steady. I made the video recently on consistency.
That was a good one.
There's a lot to be said. I think there's a lot to be said about just slow and steady. That quote, I looked it up before, and I think it's been misattributed a lot. I don't even know who the original person was, but people tend to underestimate what they tend to overestimate what they can do in the short term and underestimate what they can do in the long term. Don't try to get rich quick. Don't come in and be so don't feel like you need to get to where Dan is or where Rusty is. Like guys that have been here for several years, don't compare yourselves to them in a negative way. Like look at what they do and maybe try to model certain things you like, right. Borrow those, do those. Things that you don't like, stay away from those. So like compare yourself to them in that, using it to like better yourself, using it to get yourself towards your goals, take in a lot of information and then just choose and use what's right for you. But don't compare yourself in an envious way. Don't compare yourself in a jealous way. Like there's always someone bigger. There's always someone out there doing it bigger. Very, very dangerous thing to compare yourself in that kind of framework, in that kind of perspective. So I would just recommend slow and steady, find your niche. Yeah. Stay consistent. Snail man, stay consistent. We get so hung up daily, weekly, monthly on the next set, the next thing, whatever the right. news cycle is for that, whatever the biggest scam is that just happened, that stuff will all be forgotten in like 6 months or a year. There's going to be a new one. There's going to be a new hype cycle, new different thing going on. Slow and steady. Find out what you enjoy doing. Find out where you work best. Find out where your strengths are and just use them to move yourself forward. Set goals too. Have a direction. I used to be an engineer. Smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based.
Yeah, black
set
belt
goals
here.
And then check them off. Like if you want to set a big lofty one, like I set a goal out of the gates. Collector Boy Dan, open every box. That was unwieldy. That was a massive goal. But I started chipping away. I set sub goals. I set I want to finish off the XY era. Low hanging fruit. It's all the ultra modern. I came in at XY4, Phantom Forces. I only had to buy 3 more sets. And then I checked set sub goals. When I checked off XY era, that was huge. When I checked off WotC, when I checked off Neo era, when I checked off Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Diamond and Pearl, it was one massive goal, but I broke it down into bite-sized pieces. And every time I made progression towards that, it felt so good. And it was so motivating to get to the next one and the next one. And whatever you do, break it down into smart, bite-sized chunks and then just get at it. Every day, make sure you're doing stuff that propels you towards your goals.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot of studies around the dopamine effect of checking off the list and being able to say, I did X today, even if it's something small, and that actually gives you more momentum to do the next thing. And when they're so big, and those goals are so big that you feel you can't even get started and you get the paralysis, that's where people typically get stuck sometimes as well. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think Deep Pocket Monster says it a bunch. I think it came from one of the Pokemon games. Every journey starts with a single step. That's a very good quote related towards that thing. Don't analysis paralysis. Don't oh my God, I've got all this stuff to do ahead of me, and don't get so stressed about how hard it's going to be, and just start on that journey. Maybe you'll never make it to the summit, but you'll have a good time along the way, and you'll probably get a lot further than you think you can over the long term.
Mr. Walrus. Slow and steady will help you with I can't help you. I can't please you. Go away. That's part of our ways.
Oh, God.
I'll never forget you took my native packs off screen before you ripped. I don't know what that one is, but it sounds like you got some history there.
It was funny. I native release, several people bought in, and everyone was doing pretty well. I think Walrus was the only one who didn't get a native 19, which we don't need to get into what that means exactly. The chase cards from native were the native 19. Walrus was the only one all day to not get one of them, I believe. He got wrecked. He did also buy the fewest packs of anyone, if I remember correctly. So he didn't help himself with such a small order. Yeah, I got to push back on him. So keep him in line.
Blake breaks over here with Meta's division.
Oh, God.
So he just basically says it means I was scammed. That's basically what it means. All right, well, we'll end it on this one. It's going to be my closing question probably for all the interviews. So, as we leave this space, whenever that is for you, for retirement, or you're done with Pokemon, what is it you hope to leave in the community? What is it you hope to have that lives beyond you?
Yeah, that's a big, deep question. I just hope, I say it a lot on my channel, but I hope it either entertains or educates to some extent. This is just one guy on his journey. I get occasionally DMs. I get occasionally DMs with hey, I know Retro was memeing about the whole 90-day thing earlier. I'm actually so proud of some of the people that share with me hey, I first watched PokeFlipz when you guys started. This was my 90-day. This was my side hustle doing $1,000 a year. I just hit 100,000 for the year. I just hit, that's super lofty, and I've seen some things like that, but I hit 5K. I 5X'd. I hit 10K, whatever the number is. Seeing people actually putting to action some of the things that I do, some of the suggestions I make, and that's a two-way street. There are definitely things that some of my viewers, some of my friends in the hobby have taught me. Just earlier today and yesterday, I talked about how people pick and pull orders, and how they set up their pick list versus their packing slips and their shipping labels. Little optimizations you can make. I've gained a lot from people along the way, and I hope I give a lot to people along the way. So I just want to leave a more informed, educated, and maybe slightly entertained. Maybe some everlasting memes will be maybe 10, 20 years from now, there will be people in Pokemon referring to KetchumAllCollectibles memes. Who knows? So maybe a couple memes, but mostly laughs, mostly a lot more warm, fuzzy, mushy, gushy type things. I hope I leave behind a lot of that kind of warm and fuzzy stuff too.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh man.
Well, good stuff, Dan. As I said in the beginning, I said to you before, man, really appreciate your time. I don't take those things lightly. It's something we don't all get back. So also a big thanks to everybody in the chat. Really loved it. It's good stuff today. Kept it lively. We went almost 2.5 hours. Been a great time. Dan, thank you, sir. I look forward to talking to you again soon. If not, I'll definitely see you at Charlotte. And have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and thanks, chat, as well.
Thanks, guys.